Trick 1. Make people feel deeply understood. There is a hunger inside almost every person you will ever meet, and most of them will never say its name out loud. It is the hunger to be understood. Not admired, not flattered, not even necessarily liked, understood. To have another human being look at you and somehow see the shape of what you are feeling before you have found the words for it yourself. It is one of the rarest experiences a person can have, and because it is rare, it is also one of the most powerful. The person who can offer it becomes, almost without effort, unforgettable. Consider how most conversations actually work. Two people take turns waiting to speak. One person is talking, and the other is not really listening. They are loading the next thing they want to say, scanning for the pause where they can insert their own story, their own opinion, their own experience that is somehow similar. This is not cruelty. It is simply how attention usually behaves. And because it is so common, most people move through their days feeling subtly unseen, even among friends, even inside families, even beside the person they share a bed with. They speak, and the words land somewhere, but the feeling underneath the words goes unnoticed. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine someone mentions, in passing, on a Tuesday, that they are a little nervous about a presentation on Friday. Nothing dramatic. A single sentence, dropped into the middle of a conversation about something else entirely. Most people forget it within a minute. But then, on Friday morning, you send them a short message. I hope the presentation goes well today. In that instant, something shifts. It is not the message itself that matters. It is what the message proves. It proves that you were listening when they did not expect you to be. It proves that a small piece of their life took up residence in your mind and stayed there. It proves that they were, for a moment, held in someone's attention. This is the mechanism beneath the feeling of being understood. It is built out of small, specific noticing. Remembering the name of someone's sister. Noticing that their voice tightened slightly when a certain subject came up, and gently steering away from it. Reflecting back not just what they said, but what they seemed to mean underneath it. When you say to someone, it sounds like you are not really angry about the meeting, you're just tired of feeling like your work goes unnoticed, and you have named the thing they could not quite name themselves, you create a very particular sensation in them. Relief. The relief of not having to explain, because someone already sees. Psychologists sometimes describe this using the language of attunement, a word borrowed from the study of how infants bond with the people who care for them. A baby cries, and a caregiver correctly reads whether the cry means hunger, or tiredness, or fear, and responds to the right one. That early experience of being accurately read is one of the foundations of feeling safe in the world. We never entirely outgrow the need for it. When an adult experiences attunement, the sense that another person is tracking their inner state accurately, some very old part of the nervous system relaxes. The body registers this person as safe. And safety, strange as it may sound, is the soil in which attachment grows. We do not become attached to the people who impress us most. We become attached to the people around whom we can finally exhale. The person who understands the insecurity you have never admitted aloud, who notices the pain you were sure nobody saw, becomes associated in your mind with a kind of emotional home. You begin, without deciding to want to be near them. Not because they performed anything, but because near them, you are less alone inside your own experience. There is a reason that therapists, skilled negotiators, the most trusted friends, and the most quietly magnetic people all share this one ability. They understand that the fastest way to a person's heart is not to be interesting, but to make the other person feel interesting to you. To make them feel that their inner world is worth the effort of understanding. Most people spend their whole lives trying to be understood and almost none of that energy trying to understand. The person who reverses that ratio stands out immediately, the way a warm room stands out on a cold night. Consider a small, ordinary example. Two people go on a first date. The first spends the evening being charming, telling good stories, making clever observations, steering the conversation toward their own accomplishments in a way that is not unpleasant, just self-focused. The second person does something quieter. They ask a question, and then they ask a follow-up to the answer, and then another, until the other person finds themselves talking about something they did not expect to share, something real. And at the end of the night, here is what is fascinating. The person who was understood walks away thinking the second date was wonderful, even though they, not their date, did most of the talking. They will remember it as one of the best conversations they have had. Because being deeply listened to feels, in the body, almost identical to being deeply cared for. There is of course a shadow side to this, and it is worth naming honestly. The same understanding that builds trust can be used to gain leverage over someone, because a person who feels understood lowers their defenses. This is why the ability appears in the toolkit of manipulators as often as it appears in the toolkit of good friends. The difference is not in the skill but in the intention. Understanding someone in order to care for them builds something real. Understanding someone in order to use them corrodes everything it touches, usually including the person doing it. The technique is neutral. What you do with it is not. But for most people, most of the time, the invitation here is a gentle and generous one. Slow down. Listen past the words. Remember the small things. Notice the shift in someone's voice, the subject they avoid, the thing they mention once and never again. Reflect back not just the fact but the feeling. You do not need to be beautiful, wealthy, clever, or impressive to do this. You only need to pay a kind of attention that almost nobody pays. And in a world where nearly everyone feels a little unseen, the person who truly sees becomes the person that others quietly, and often permanently, do not want to lose. Trick 2. Reveal less emotion than you actually feel. Most people are, without realizing it, completely transparent. Their inner weather is written all over the outside of them. When they are anxious, their voice climbs and their words speed up. When they are excited, they lean in, they overshare, they give everything away. When they are hurt, their face falls before they have decided whether they want it to. This transparency feels natural, even honest, and in close and trusted relationships it can be a beautiful thing. But it comes with a quiet cost that few people ever examine. A person whose every emotion is instantly visible is a person who is easy to read, easy to predict, and therefore easy to influence. Now picture the opposite kind of person. Something good happens to them, something that would make most people light up and announce it, and instead they simply smile, a small and contained smile, and say, "That's nice." Something provokes them, and where you expected a flash of anger you find only a steady, unbothered calm. You cannot quite tell how much anything is landing. And here is what happens inside you when you are around such a person. You start watching them more closely. You lean in. You find yourself working, without meaning to figure them out, to earn a bigger reaction, to decode what is happening beneath that composed surface. Their restraint has quietly turned you into the one who is trying. This is one of the oldest and strangest truths about human attention. We are drawn to what we cannot fully read. Complete transparency, over time, produces a kind of quiet boredom, because there is nothing left to wonder about. Mystery, by contrast, keeps the mind engaged, because the mind cannot rest until it has resolved the uncertainty, and a person who reveals a little less than they feel never quite lets that uncertainty resolve. They are always slightly more than what you can see. It is important to understand what this is and what it is not. This is not about being cold, closed off, or emotionally dead. A person who feels nothing and shows nothing is not mysterious. They are simply empty, and people sense that emptiness quickly and drift away from it. The power here comes precisely from the gap between what is felt and what is shown. You feel a great deal. You are moved, provoked, delighted, stung, all of it, fully, on the inside. You simply do not spill all of it onto the outside the instant it arrives. That gap, the space between the strong inner current and the calm outer surface, is where a sense of depth is born. People feel that there is more to you than they can see, and they are right. Consider a concrete situation. You are at a gathering and someone you find genuinely fascinating is standing across the room. The transparent version of you makes a beeline toward them, laughs a little too eagerly at their jokes, mentions 3 times how interesting they are, and gives away, in the first 10 minutes, exactly how much they have affected you. The other version of you feels all of that same interest, but lets only a fraction of it show. You are warm, you are present, but you are not visibly overwhelmed. You hold a little back. And paradoxically, this is far more compelling, because the other person cannot tell where they stand, and human beings find it almost impossible to stop thinking about someone whose feelings toward them remain slightly unclear. There is real psychology beneath this. Uncertainty is a powerful amplifier of emotion. Studies of attraction have found that people often become more preoccupied with someone when they are unsure of that person's feelings than when they are certain of them. Certainty allows the mind to relax and move on. Uncertainty keeps the mind circling back, replaying conversations, searching for clues, trying to resolve the open question. When you reveal a little less than you feel, you leave that question gently open, and the other person's own imagination does the rest of the work, usually in your favor, because a mind left to wonder tends to fill the silence with fascination. Emotional restraint also carries a quieter signal, one about strength. When something provokes you and you do not immediately react, you communicate that you are not easily shaken, that your inner state is not at the mercy of every passing event. People instinctively read this as a form of security and depth. The person who explodes at the smallest slight reveals exactly where they are fragile. The person who receives the same slight with a calm, unbothered expression reveals nothing, and leaves the other person wondering whether the blow even landed. That not knowing is unsettling in a way that keeps people paying attention. Think of 2 colleagues receiving difficult news in a meeting. The first reacts instantly, a sharp intake of breath, a visible flash of frustration, a rush of defensive words. The second simply nods slowly, pauses, and says, "Let me think about that." The room reads the second person as the steadier one, the deeper one, the one more in control, even if, on the inside, both of them are equally rattled. The only difference is the size of the gap they chose to keep between what they felt and what they showed. None of this means hiding who you are or pretending to feel nothing. The healthiest version of this principle is simply a kind of composure, a willingness not to hand over your entire emotional state to every person and every moment the instant you experience it. It is the difference between a river that floods every field it passes and a deep, slow-moving river whose real depth you can only guess at from the surface. Both carry a great deal of water. Only one keeps you wondering how much. So the invitation is not to become guarded or unreachable. It is to develop a small, graceful delay between feeling and showing. Let your reactions be a little smaller than the feelings behind them. Let people sense that there is more beneath the surface than you are choosing to reveal in any given moment. Not because you are playing a game, but because a person who is not entirely transparent gives others the one thing that keeps attraction alive, something left to discover. Trick 3. Speak slowly when everyone else rushes. Listen, sometime, to how people actually talk when they are nervous. The words tumble out in a rush, one crowding into the next, sentences colliding before the thought behind them has finished forming. There is a breathlessness to it, a sense of someone trying to get everything out before they lose their turn, before the other person's attention slips away, before the silence they are so afraid of has a chance to open. Anxiety speeds up the voice. Insecurity fills every gap before it can become quiet. And because so many people speak this way, so much of the time, the effect of doing the opposite is almost startling. When someone speaks slowly, in a room where everyone else is rushing, the entire atmosphere changes around them. Their calm becomes a kind of gravity. People turn toward it. There is an unspoken assumption, buried deep in how we read one another, that speed signals fear and slowness signals control. The person who does not hurry seems to believe that their words are worth waiting for, and remarkably, others tend to believe it too. Slow speech tells the room, without saying it, that this person is not competing for attention. They assume they already have it. And that quiet assumption is one of the most attractive things a human being can project. Think about what actually happens in a conversation when you slow down. First, your words gain weight. A sentence delivered slowly, with small pauses between its parts, lands differently than the same sentence fired off in a rush. The pauses give the listener time to absorb, to feel, to anticipate what is coming next. Second, and stranger, slowness is contagious in a way that pulls the rhythm of the conversation toward you. When you refuse to hurry, the other person unconsciously begins to slow down to match you. You are no longer chasing the conversation. You are setting its pace. And whoever sets the pace of an interaction holds a quiet kind of authority within it. There is a physical dimension to this as well. Rushed speech tends to come from the throat and the top of the breath, shallow and tight. Slow speech tends to come from lower, from a fuller breath, and it carries with it a sense of physical ease that other people can hear even if they could not tell you why. We are remarkably good at detecting the state of another person's nervous system through their voice. A calm, unhurried voice tells the listener's body that there is no emergency here, nothing to brace against, and their own nervous system begins to settle in response. This is part of why some people are simply soothing to be around. Their pace gives everyone else permission to slow down too. Consider a specific moment. You are asked a difficult question in front of others, perhaps in a meeting, perhaps by someone you want to impress. The rushed instinct is to answer immediately, to fill the silence at once, to prove you have a response ready. But watch what happens when instead you let a beat of silence sit, take a slow breath, and then begin to speak at an unhurried pace. The silence, which felt so dangerous, actually works in your favor. It signals that you are considering, not scrambling. It suggests that your answer is worth the small wait. And when you finally speak, slowly and clearly, your words carry more authority than they ever would have in a rush, precisely because you are not afraid of the quiet before them. The same principle transforms more intimate conversations. Imagine telling someone something that matters to you, something you want them to really feel. Said quickly, it becomes just more words in the endless stream of words. Said slowly, with genuine pauses. You know, when I first met you, I did not expect to feel quite this comfortable. The pauses themselves become charged. They create anticipation. They make the listener lean in, hanging on the space before the next word arrives. Slowness turns ordinary speech into something that feels deliberate and meant, and people are moved far more by what feels meant than by what feels merely said. Slowness also creates a striking effect in moments of tension. When a conversation heats up and the other person is speeding up, getting louder, more agitated, the person who slows down instead of matching that escalation seems almost impossibly grounded. While the other loses their composure, you keep yours, and the contrast makes you appear to be the steadier and stronger of the two, regardless of what is actually being said. There is something quietly destabilizing, in a good way, about a person who refuses to be rushed even when everything around them is accelerating. It suggests a person who cannot easily be knocked off their center, and that is a deeply attractive quality. It helps to be clear about what slow speech is not. It is not dullness, not a lifeless monotone, not the exaggerated slowness that feels theatrical or condescending. The goal is not to bore people or to perform calmness. It is simply to remove the anxious rush from your voice, to speak at the pace of someone who is comfortable, who is not afraid of a pause, who trusts that they will be heard. Think of the way a person talks when they are completely relaxed among people they love and trust. There is an ease to it, an unhurriedness, a willingness to let silences exist. That is the quality worth carrying into the moments that matter. Most people never notice how fast they speak, because everyone around them is speaking just as fast, and the collective rush feels normal. That is exactly why the slow speaker stands out. In a world addicted to hurry, calm becomes rare, and rare things command attention. You do not need a better voice, a cleverer script, or more interesting things to say. You need only to slow down, to let your words breathe, to let silences sit, to move through conversation at the pace of someone who knows they are worth listening to. Do that, and people will lean in, quiet down, and give you a kind of attention they did not plan to give. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this calm journey and the quiet ideas we explore together, consider subscribing to Night Mind Academy, so you can return here anytime you need a peaceful space to unwind and drift into sleep. Trick 4. Stay calm when others seek your reaction. There is a particular kind of power that almost nobody talks about, and it reveals itself in the moments when someone is trying to get a rise out of you. Human beings are constantly, often unconsciously, fishing for reactions from one another. Some want reassurance. Some want attention. Some want to confirm that they matter to you, that they can move you, that they have some influence over your inner state. And some, whether they admit it or not, will poke and provoke and needle simply to see what happens, to watch you react, because your reaction gives them something they want. It gives them a sense of control. Here is the quiet truth beneath all of it. The moment you react strongly, the moment you flare up, panic, over-explain, or scramble to defend yourself, you hand over exactly the thing they were reaching for. Your reaction is information. It shows precisely where you are tender, what you are afraid of, which buttons produce which effects. And once someone knows which buttons work, the dynamic between you has quietly shifted. They now hold a small lever over your emotional state. This is why staying calm when others are seeking your reaction is not passivity or weakness. It is one of the most self-protective and quietly powerful things a person can do. Imagine a specific scene. Someone makes a cutting remark, dressed up as a joke, clearly designed to get under your skin in front of other people. The expected response, the one they are unconsciously hoping for, is that you will bristle, that your face will tighten, that you will defend yourself or fire something back. That reaction would confirm that the remark landed, that they found the sensitive spot, that they have power over how you feel. Now imagine instead that you simply pause, offer a small, unbothered smile, and let the comment pass without feeding it. Perhaps you say, mildly, "That's one way to see it," and move on. Something interesting happens in that moment. The person who threw the barb is left holding it. The emotional energy they tried to hand you has nowhere to go, and it settles back onto them, where it becomes faintly uncomfortable. This is the strange physics of provocation. When someone sends emotional energy toward you and you do not return it, that energy does not simply vanish. It rebounds. The provoker is left alone inside the tension they tried to create, and that isolation is deeply unsettling, because human beings expect emotional energy to be reciprocated. We expect a poke to produce a flinch, a jab to produce a defense, an insult to produce anger. When it produces nothing but calm, the whole exchange is thrown off balance, and the person who stayed calm is the one who ends up looking and feeling in control. There is a common misconception that the strongest response to provocation is a stronger counter-response, that meeting aggression with aggression proves you are not to be trifled with. But observe closely and you will notice that loud reactions, however forceful they appear, almost always signal a loss of control. The person shouting has been moved. The person who has been provoked into a rage has, in a real sense, been defeated, because they were successfully steered into an emotional state they did not choose. Calm, by contrast, signals that you cannot be steered. It signals that your inner state belongs to you and is not available for others to adjust at will. And that is a far more intimidating quality than any amount of visible anger. It is worth being honest about what this requires, because it is not easy. Staying calm when provoked does not mean you feel nothing. You may feel a great deal. The sting, the flash of anger, the urge to defend yourself may all rise up hot and fast. The skill is not in failing to feel these things. The skill is in feeling them fully while choosing not to broadcast them, not to be governed by them in the moment. It is the difference between the storm and the response to the storm. You can have the entire storm inside you and still keep your face, your voice, and your choices calm. That gap, once again, is where the power lives. Consider how this plays out in relationships and attraction specifically. Sometimes people test the ones they are drawn to, almost without meaning to. They create small provocations, small conflicts, small withdrawals, partly to see how the other person handles pressure. It is a kind of unconscious question. Are you steady enough to be trusted with my feelings, or will you be knocked over by every gust of difficulty? The person who stays calm and grounded when tested passes that test in a way that words never could. They demonstrate, rather than claim, that they are stable, that they will not collapse or lash out at the first sign of tension, that they are safe to become attached to. And safety, as we have seen, is the ground in which attachment takes root. Think of two people in the early, uncertain stage of a connection. One partner, feeling insecure, makes a slightly barbed comment to see if the other still cares. The first kind of response is to react, to get defensive, to demand to know what that was supposed to mean, to escalate. This confirms the insecurity and turns a small test into a real conflict. The second kind of response is to stay warm and calm, to decline the invitation to fight, perhaps to gently name what is really happening. You seem a little on edge tonight. Is everything okay? This response does something remarkable. It refuses the provocation and offers understanding in its place. It tells the other person that their attempt to destabilize was met not with a matching storm but with steadiness and care. That is enormously reassuring and enormously attractive. None of this is about becoming detached or refusing to ever show that things affect you. Complete unreactiveness, held rigidly, becomes its own kind of coldness. The point is more subtle. It is about not surrendering your emotional state to anyone who reaches for it. It is about being the kind of person whose calm is not fragile, who can be poked without toppling, who can sit inside tension without needing to immediately discharge it. When people sense that your center holds, that you cannot be easily knocked off it, they respond with a mixture of respect and fascination. They stop trying to control your reactions and start wondering. Trick 5. Leave while the energy is still high. There is an art to endings that almost nobody practices, and it may be one of the most quietly powerful skills in all of human connection. Most people stay too long. They linger in conversations past the peak, remain at gatherings until their presence has gone flat, keep talking until the sparkle of an interaction has dimmed into something ordinary and a little tired. They do this out of a very human impulse. The moment is good, so they want more of it, they want to hold on. They are afraid that leaving means the good feeling ends. But the paradox is that staying too long is often exactly what kills the good feeling. The person who learns to leave while the energy is still high understands something the lingerers do not. Think about the shape of any interaction. It has a rise, a peak, and a decline. In the rise, there is freshness and momentum. At the peak, there is real connection, laughter, a sense of something alive between two people. And then, if it goes on long enough, comes the inevitable decline. The energy softens, the conversation starts to repeat itself, the pauses grow a little longer and a little more awkward, the shine wears off. Most people experience the whole arc, including the decline, every single time. And because memory weights the end of an experience heavily, they walk away with the fading feeling, not the peak feeling, as their final impression. Now imagine someone who leaves at the peak. The conversation is at its best, the laughter is real, the connection is humming, and right then, gracefully, warmly, they bring it to a close. I have loved this, I have to run, let's do it again soon. What have they done? They have ended the experience at its highest point, which means the other person's final impression is of that high point. There was no decline, no flattening, no slow drift into the ordinary. The interaction is preserved, in memory, at its very best. And because it ended before it was exhausted, it leaves behind something priceless, the sense that there was more, that the well was not drained, that the next time holds promise. This is closely tied to how memory actually works. Psychologists have long observed that we do not remember experiences as a smooth average of every moment. Instead, we remember them largely by their most intense point and by how they ended. An interaction that peaks and then declines is remembered as a fade. An interaction that ends at its peak is remembered as a high. The person who masters their exits is, in effect, curating the memory they leave behind. They are ensuring that when the other person thinks of them, they think of a feeling that was rising, not one that had gone stale. Consider a specific example. You are on a date, and it is going wonderfully. 3 hours in, you are both still enjoying it, but you can feel that you are somewhere near the peak. A little more time and the energy would begin, inevitably, to soften. The common instinct is to stretch it out, to order one more drink, to keep going until the natural momentum runs down and you part with a slightly deflated, "Well, I guess we should go." The rarer and wiser choice is to end it right there, at the height, with warmth and a little reluctance. "This has been so much better than I expected. I really don't want it to end, which is exactly why I should go now." That leaves the other person wanting more. It leaves them replaying the good parts on the way home, feeling the pull of the unfinished, looking forward to next time with real anticipation rather than mere agreement. The same principle applies far beyond dates. In friendships, in networking, in any conversation at a party, the person who exits gracefully at a high point is remembered fondly and missed a little. The person who stays until the conversation has visibly died, until both people are searching for a reason to escape, is remembered as slightly draining, even if the earlier part was delightful. Nobody decides consciously to hold this against them. It simply lodges in the emotional memory. This person is a bit much, this person overstays. And that quiet impression, once formed, is hard to undo. There is a deeper psychology here too, one about scarcity and value. Things that are always fully available, that never end, that can be had in unlimited quantity, tend to feel less valuable to us. Things that are little scarce, that end before we are ready, that leave us wanting, tend to feel more precious. The person who is always there, always available, who never brings an interaction to a close, unintentionally teaches others that their presence is unlimited and therefore ordinary. The person who leaves while the energy is high teaches others, without a word, that their presence is a good thing that does not last forever, and things that do not last forever are the things we treasure. It is important that this be done with genuine warmth, not as a cold tactic. The goal is not to abruptly abandon people or to play hard to get in a way that feels calculated. The goal is to develop a sense of timing, an awareness of the peak, and the grace to honor it. When you leave well, you leave the other person feeling good, feeling that the time together was a gift, feeling a small, pleasant ache of wishing there had been a little more. That ache is not cruelty. It is the natural residue of a good thing ended at the right moment, and it is the feeling that makes people look forward to seeing you again. There is also a quieter, more personal benefit to this practice. Learning to leave while the energy is high requires a certain security. It requires trusting that the connection will survive the ending, that you do not need to extract every last drop from a good moment because there will be more good moments to come. The people who cannot leave are often the ones who are, underneath, afraid that if they let go of this moment, nothing as good will come again. Leaving well is, in part, an act of quiet confidence. It says, "I trust that this is not the last good moment we will have, so I can let this one end at its best." And that confidence, that lack of desperation, is itself one of the most attractive qualities a person can carry. So pay attention to the arc of your interactions. Feel for the peak. And when you find it, let yourself do the rare and graceful thing. End it there, with warmth, before the shine wears off. Leave people wanting more of you rather than relieved to see you go. In a world full of people who linger too long, the one who knows how to leave at the right moment becomes the one that others cannot wait to see again. Trick 6. Be gently unpredictable. Human beings are pattern-seeking creatures, and one of the patterns we build fastest is a model of the people around us. Within a few encounters, we form a sense of what someone is like, how they will respond, what they will say, how the next interaction will go. This is efficient and useful, but it has a hidden cost in the realm of attraction and connection. Once we feel we have fully predicted someone, once the model in our head is complete and confident, a subtle thing happens. We stop paying close attention. The person becomes, in a sense, finished in our minds, and finished things do not hold our fascination the way unfinished ones do. This is why gentle unpredictability is so quietly powerful. Not chaos, not inconsistency, not the exhausting unreliability of someone you can never count on, but small, pleasant surprises that keep the model in the other person's head from ever fully closing. When a person cannot completely predict you, some part of their attention stays switched on. They keep watching, keep wondering, keep discovering. The interest does not have a chance to settle into the comfortable boredom of the fully known. Consider how predictability usually creeps into a connection. Two people establish their rhythms. He always texts good morning at the same time. She always responds within a minute. They always go to the same place, have the same kind of conversation, follow the same emotional script. There is comfort in this, real comfort, and comfort matters. But when the predictability becomes total, the spark that depends on discovery begins, quietly, to fade. Not because anything is wrong, but because there is nothing left to find out. The other person has, without noticing, filed you under fully known, and fully known is a short walk from taken for granted. Now imagine small breaks in the pattern. The person who is usually so responsive is, one day, pleasantly unhurried, absorbed in their own life, and replies a few hours later with something warm but clearly written by someone who was busy living. The person who is normally calm and measured shows, one evening, an unexpected flash of playfulness or mischief. The one you thought you had figured out reveals a hobby, an opinion, a past experience that does not fit the neat model you had built. Each of these small surprises does the same thing. It reopens the question of who this person is. It tells your mind, you do not have them fully figured out after all. Keep watching. There is real psychology beneath this, and some of it comes from the study of how reward and anticipation work in the brain. We tend to think we are most engaged by consistent, reliable reward, that if something good happens every single time, we will value it most. But the research on motivation tells a more complicated story. The brain's anticipation systems are most activated not by perfectly predictable rewards, but by variable ones. By situations where something good might happen, but you cannot be sure exactly when or in what form. Predictable good things fade into the background. Slightly unpredictable good things keep the mind engaged and reaching. A person who is warmly, pleasantly unpredictable taps into this ancient wiring. You never quite know which delightful version of them you will get, and so you stay tuned in. But there is a crucial distinction that must be drawn, because this principle is easy to misunderstand and easy to abuse. Gentle unpredictability is not the same as being emotionally unreliable, hot and cold, or cruel. It is not about making someone anxious, about withdrawing affection to keep them off balance, about being warm one day and icy the next so that they never feel secure. That kind of unpredictability does not create healthy attraction. It creates anxiety, and anxiety, while it can look like intensity for a while, corrodes trust and eventually connection. The unpredictability that draws people in is unpredictability within a foundation of warmth and reliability. The person always knows you care. What they cannot predict is the delightful specifics, which side of you will show up, what you will say, what small surprise the day might hold. Consider a concrete picture of the healthy version. You are reliably kind, reliably warm, reliably there when it counts. That is the stable ground. But within that ground, you keep your capacity for surprise alive. You suggest doing something unexpected instead of the usual routine. You reveal a strange and wonderful piece of your history at a moment they did not see coming. You respond to a situation with humor when they expected seriousness, or with unexpected depth when they expected a joke. None of this threatens their sense that you care. All of it keeps them from ever feeling that they have reached the bottom of you. And a person who feels there is always more to discover in you is a person who does not get bored and does not drift. Contrast this with the exhausting version, so the difference is unmistakable. The exhausting version withdraws warmth unpredictably. One day you are affectionate, the next you are distant for no reason the other person can find. They are left anxiously scanning for what they did wrong, never able to relax, never sure of where they stand. This does capture attention, but it captures it the way a wound captures attention. It is not fascination. It is fear. And while some people become addicted to that anxious cycle, it is not a foundation on which anything good or lasting can be built. The whole art here is to be unpredictable in your delights while being utterly predictable in your care. There is also a quieter dimension to this principle, which is simply about staying alive and growing as a person. The people who become boring in relationships are often the ones who stop changing, stopped learning, stopped surprising even themselves. Their lives settled into a fixed shape, and so did they, and there was nothing new to bring to the connection. The people who remain interesting over years, not just weeks, are the ones who keep having new experiences, developing new interests, encountering new ideas, and therefore keep having new things to reveal. Gentle unpredictability, in its deepest form, is not a trick you perform on someone else. It is a byproduct of being a person who is genuinely still growing, still curious, still becoming. So resist the pull toward total predictability, even as you build the reliability that trust requires. Keep a little mystery alive. Break your own patterns now and then, in warm and pleasant ways. Let people be surprised by you, not unsettled, not made anxious, but delighted by a side of you they did not expect. Keep the question of who you are gently open, so that the other person's attention never has a reason to switch off. In a connection, the moment someone feels they have fully figured you out is the moment the discovering ends. The person who stays a little unpredictable is the person others never stop finding new reasons to be fascinated by. Trick 7. Master eye contact without staring. Of all the silent signals that pass between two people, none is older or more powerful than the meeting of eyes. Long before we had language, we had the gaze, and the gaze carried enormous meaning, recognition, threat, invitation, love. That ancient wiring is still fully intact in us. When another person's eyes meet ours and hold, even for a moment longer than usual, something happens in the body that no amount of clever conversation can produce. There is a jolt of contact, a sense of being met, a small electric acknowledgement that says, "I see you, and you see me." Eye contact is one of the most direct routes to intimacy that exists, and most people, out of nervousness, barely use it. Watch how the average person's eyes behave in conversation. They flit and dart. They drop to the floor, slide to the side, check the phone, scan the room. The eyes are restless, and that restlessness communicates something, whether the person means it to or not. It communicates unease, distraction, a lack of full presence, sometimes a lack of confidence or interest. When your gaze cannot settle, the other person feels, at a level below words, that you are not entirely with them. And feeling that someone is not entirely with you is one of the quiet disappointments of ordinary human contact. Now consider the effect of steady, warm eye contact. When you hold someone's gaze, not aggressively, not in a way that demands or challenges, but softly and with genuine interest, you give them a rare gift. You give them the feeling of your full attention. You tell them, without a single word, that in this moment they have all of you, that nothing in the room is more worthy of your focus than they are. This is extraordinarily flattering in the deepest sense of the word. It makes the other person feel significant, chosen, real. And people become attached to those who make them feel that way. There is measurable psychology beneath this. Sustained eye contact has been shown to increase feelings of connection and even physical attraction between people. In one well-known line of research, strangers who were asked to look into each other's eyes for an extended period reported markedly increased feelings of closeness and affection, sometimes dramatically so. The gaze, held, seems to accelerate the sense of intimacy, compressing into minutes what might otherwise take much longer to build. The eyes are a shortcut to the feeling of knowing and being known. But there is a knife edge here, and it is essential to understand it. Eye contact that is too intense, too unbroken, too fixed, does not create intimacy. It creates discomfort, even alarm. A stare that never releases feels like pressure, like being pinned, like a threat. The nervous system reads relentless, unblinking eye contact the way it reads the gaze of a predator, and it responds with the urge to flee. So the art is not simply more eye contact. The art is warm eye contact, held long enough to connect and then released naturally, in a rhythm that feels alive rather than fixed. What does that rhythm look like in practice? Imagine a conversation. As the other person speaks, you hold their gaze with soft attention, genuinely interested in what they are saying. Now and then, naturally, your eyes drift. Perhaps you look away thoughtfully as you consider a point, perhaps you glance down for a moment. Then you return, meeting their eyes again as you respond. There is a gentle ebb and flow to it, contact and release, like breathing. The contact says I am with you. The release keeps it from becoming pressure. Together they create a sense of attentive ease, of being fully present without being intrusive. There is a particular moment where eye contact carries special weight, and that is the moment of connection over something felt. Someone says something that genuinely moves or delights you, and in that instant, you meet their eyes and hold them just slightly longer than usual, letting them see that you felt it too. That small extension of the gaze in a charged moment communicates volumes. It says, "That landed, I am here with you in this." Two people sharing a look across a moment of real feeling can be more intimate than an hour of ordinary talk. The eyes confirm the connection in a way words cannot. Eye contact also does quiet work in the realm of confidence. A person who can hold another's gaze comfortably, without flinching away, without the nervous need to escape, signals a kind of inner steadiness. It suggests they are comfortable with intimacy, comfortable being seen, not afraid of the vulnerability that comes with real contact. There is a reason we instinctively distrust people who cannot look us in the eye. The avoidance reads as something hidden, something uneasy. And there is a reason we are drawn to people who can hold our gaze with warmth. It reads as honesty, presence, and quiet self-possession. The steady gaze is the gaze of someone who is not afraid of the encounter. Consider a specific scene. You are meeting someone for the first time, being introduced. The nervous version of this moment involves a quick, glancing look and then eyes sliding away to safety. The other version involves meeting their eyes as you greet them, holding the contact for a warm beat with a genuine smile, really seeing the person in front of you before your gaze relaxes. That small difference registers immediately. The second version makes the other person feel actually met, actually acknowledged as an individual rather than processed as one more face. First impressions are built out of exactly these micro-moments, and the quality of your gaze is one of the most powerful of them. It is worth saying that this cannot be faked into something cold and technical. Eye contact deployed as a manipulation, held mechanically because you read that you should, tends to feel exactly as hollow as it is. The warmth has to be real. The way to develop genuine, comfortable eye contact is not to perform it, but to actually become interested in the person in front of you, actually present with them, actually willing to be seen. When the interest is real, the eyes follow naturally, and the warmth in your gaze is something the other person can feel is true. So practice, gently, the art of the steady, warm gaze. Let your eyes settle on the person you are with rather than restlessly wandering. Hold their gaze long enough to make real contact, then release it naturally, in a living rhythm. In moments of shared feeling, let your eyes linger a beat longer to confirm the connection. Do not stare, do not pressure, do not fix. Simply be present enough to look, and steady enough not to look away out of fear. In a world where most people's eyes are always somewhere else, the person who can truly look at you, and let themselves be looked at in return, offers a kind of contact that is rare, and that people do not easily forget. Trick 8. Make silence feel comfortable. There is a moment that arrives in almost every conversation, a small fork in the road that most people never notice they are standing at. The talking pauses. A silence opens. And in that instant, something is revealed about each person present, not by what they say, but by how they hold the quiet. Most people cannot hold it at all. The silence feels like a problem to them, an emptiness that must be filled at once, an awkwardness that signals something has gone wrong. So they rush to fill it, with anything, with chatter, with a nervous joke, with a change of subject, with words whose only purpose is to make the silence stop. And in that rushing, they give themselves away. The discomfort with silence almost always comes from anxiety. Underneath it is a set of quiet fears, that the silence means the other person is bored, that the connection is failing, that it is your job to keep the whole thing afloat and the quiet is proof you are failing at it. These fears feel urgent and real in the moment, and they drive an enormous amount of unnecessary talk. But here is what is worth understanding. The silence itself is neutral. It is not a problem. It only becomes awkward when someone treats it as awkward. The person who can sit inside a silence calmly, without panic, transforms that silence from an emptiness into something else entirely. A space of ease, of comfort, of intimacy. Think about the people in your own life with whom you can be silent. They are almost always the people you are closest to. With a stranger, silence feels like pressure. With someone you deeply trust, silence feels like rest. You can sit beside them saying nothing and feel completely at ease. And that shared, comfortable quiet is one of the surest signs of real closeness. Now here is the powerful reversal. If you can create the feeling of comfortable silence with someone early, before that deep trust has been built, you give them a preview of intimacy. You make them feel, prematurely and pleasantly, the ease that normally comes only with people they have known for years. And that feeling is magnetic. Consider a specific situation. You are with someone, and a natural pause falls in the conversation. The anxious move is to immediately scramble for something to say, to treat the pause as a fire to be put out. The powerful move is to simply let it be, to sit in the quiet with a relaxed, easy presence, perhaps with a small, comfortable smile, entirely unbothered. What does the other person experience in that moment? They experience your calm. They see that you are not anxious, not scrambling, not dependent on constant talk to feel okay. And your calm gives them permission to be calm too. The silence, held well by you, becomes a shared ease rather than a shared discomfort. Something in them relaxes, and they associate that relaxation with you. There is real signaling power in this. The ability to be comfortable in silence communicates security. It says that you do not need to perform, do not need to fill every gap, do not depend on constant noise to feel that things are okay. This is deeply attractive precisely because it is so rare. Most people are subtly ruled by their discomfort with quiet, always managing it, always talking to keep it at bay. The person who is genuinely at ease in silence stands out as someone settled within themselves, someone who does not need the reassurance of endless chatter. That inner settledness is one of the quietest and most powerful forms of attractiveness there is. Silence also does something valuable to the words that surround it. In a conversation where words never stop, no single word carries much weight. Everything blurs together into a stream. But in a conversation where silences are allowed to exist, the words that come after a pause land with more force. Silence creates space, and space creates emphasis. When you say something meaningful and then let it sit in silence rather than immediately rushing on, you give it room to be felt. The pause tells the other person, that mattered, let it land. People who are comfortable with silence are often, without realizing it, far more impactful speakers, because they let their words breathe. There is a particular kind of silence that is worth special mention, and that is the charged silence of a moment of connection. Two people share a look, or a feeling passes between them, and neither speaks. In that silence, if both can hold it, something intimate happens. The temptation, especially for the nervous, is to break it, to diffuse the intensity with a joke or a word, because the closeness of the unbroken quiet feels almost too much. But the person who can hold that charged silence, who can stay in it and let it deepen rather than escaping it, allows the connection to intensify in a way that words would only interrupt. Some of the most intimate moments between people happen in exactly these held silences, where nothing is said because nothing needs to be. It helps to distinguish comfortable silence from its opposites, because not all silence is the same. There is the cold silence of disconnection, the tense silence of conflict, the empty silence of two people who have nothing to say to each other. That is not what we are talking about. Comfortable silence is warm. It is the silence of two people who are at ease together, present with each other, not needing to fill the space because the space itself feels good. The difference is entirely in the emotional quality underneath it, and that quality comes from your own inner state. If you are calm and warm inside the silence becomes warm. If you are anxious inside it, the silence becomes anxious too, and the other person feels it. So the practice here is really a practice of inner calm. It is learning to notice the anxiety that rises when a conversation pauses, and choosing not to obey it. It is letting a silence exist for a moment longer than feels comfortable, and discovering that nothing bad happens, that in fact, something good happens, a settling, an ease, a deepening. It is trusting that you do not have to carry the entire weight of keeping the interaction alive, that the quiet is allowed, that two people can simply be together without a constant stream of words. Each time you resist the urge to fill the silence and instead hold it with warmth, you get a little better at it, and a little more comfortable in your own skin. The person who can make silence feel comfortable gives others something they rarely receive: permission to stop performing, to stop filling space, to simply be. In a world of constant noise and nervous chatter, that quiet ease is a profound relief. People do not always know why they feel so relaxed around you, so at home, so able to breathe. But they feel it, and they return to it, and they grow attached to the rare person in whose presence even the silences feel good. Trick 9. Never explain every detail about yourself. There is a very human impulse, especially when we like someone and want them to like us back, to lay ourselves out completely, to tell them everything, to explain all of who we are, to hand over our whole story in the hope that the more they know, the more they will care. It feels like honesty. It feels like the way to be close. But there is a paradox hidden inside it, and it is one of the most counterintuitive truths in all of attraction. The person who explains everything about themselves, who leaves nothing unsaid, who hands over the complete map of who they are, often becomes less compelling, not more. Because once there is nothing left to discover, there is nothing left to pull the other person forward. Attraction feeds on curiosity, and curiosity feeds on the unknown. When you meet someone and they are partly a mystery to you, your mind reaches toward them, wanting to understand, wanting to fill in the blanks, wanting to know more. That reaching is a large part of what attraction actually feels like. But every time a blank gets filled in, that particular pull is satisfied and released. And if all the blanks get filled in at once, in a rush of complete disclosure, the reaching stops. The mystery collapses. The other person now feels they have the whole picture, and a whole picture, however impressive, does not create the forward pull of wanting to know more. This does not mean you should be secretive, guarded, or fake. It means there is wisdom in pacing, in letting yourself be revealed gradually rather than all at once, in leaving some things unsaid, not out of manipulation, but out of an understanding that discovery is one of the great pleasures of getting to know someone, and that pleasure is destroyed by dumping everything at the outset. The most compelling people are not the ones who hide, but the ones who unfold, who always seem to have another layer, another story, another dimension that has not yet been revealed. Consider a concrete contrast. Two people are getting to know someone new. The first tells their entire life story in the first few hours, every hardship, every accomplishment, every relationship, every opinion, the full contents of their inner world laid bare. It feels intense, even intimate, in the moment. But afterward, something is strangely deflated. The other person knows everything now. There is no more to wonder about. The second person shares themselves more slowly. They mention something intriguing but do not fully explain it. They let a fascinating detail surface and then move on, leaving it hanging. They answer questions warmly but do not preempt every question with a flood of information. And the effect is that the other person keeps wanting more. Each conversation reveals a little, and each revelation only deepens the sense that there is much more still to find. There is a principle from psychology sometimes described in terms of how we form impressions and maintain interest. When information about a person arrives all at once, we quickly form a fixed impression and stop updating it. When information arrives gradually, we remain in a state of active interest, continually revising and deepening our sense of the person. The gradual reveal keeps the other person's mind engaged in the ongoing project of understanding you. And a mind that is actively engaged in understanding someone is a mind that is thinking about them, drawn toward them, invested in them. There is also something about depth that only reveals itself over time, and cannot be conveyed in a summary. If you tell someone, in the first hour, all the ways you are complex and interesting, it lands as mere claims. But if those qualities emerge slowly, discovered by the other person through real interaction, they land as truths, earned, felt, believed. Depth that is shown gradually is far more convincing than depth that is announced. The person who lets their qualities be discovered rather than declaring them creates a much stronger and more lasting impression, because the other person feels they found those qualities themselves, which makes the qualities feel real. It is worth being clear about the shadow this principle can cast, because withholding can be done in unhealthy ways. This is not about playing coy, about creating false mystery, about withholding basic honesty in ways that undermine trust. It is not about being evasive when someone asks a sincere question, or hiding important things a person deserves to know. Healthy pacing is not the same as concealment. The distinction is between the natural, generous unfolding of a person over time, and the anxious or manipulative withholding of things that ought to be shared. The first builds intrigue and trust together. The second builds only confusion and, eventually, suspicion. The healthiest version of this principle is really just a kind of self-respecting patience. It comes from valuing your own story enough not to spill it all at once to anyone who will listen. It comes from trusting that there is time, that you do not have to prove your whole worth in the first meeting, that the good things about you will emerge naturally as the connection deepens. There is a quiet confidence in this. The person who feels they must explain everything immediately is often, underneath, anxious to prove their value before the other person loses interest. The person who lets themselves be discovered slowly is signaling, without a word, that they trust their own value and are in no hurry to defend it. Consider how this changes the texture of getting to know someone. Instead of two people rapidly downloading their entire histories into each other, you have a slow, mutual unfolding, a series of small discoveries stretched over time, each one a small gift. This is not only more attractive, it is more enjoyable for both people. The pleasure of gradually discovering another human being is one of the deepest pleasures there is, and it is a pleasure you rob the other person of when you explain everything at once. By pacing yourself, you are not withholding out of stinginess. You are preserving the joy of discovery for both of you. So resist the urge to explain all of yourself, especially early, especially when you like someone and the anxiety to be known is strongest. Let yourself be revealed a piece at a time. Answer honestly, but do not preempt every question with a flood. Mention the intriguing thing and let it hang for now. Trust that there is time, and that the slow unfolding is more compelling than the complete download. The most fascinating people are the ones who always seem to have another layer beneath the one you just found. Be a person who unfolds, not a person who empties themselves out all at once, and others will keep reaching toward you, wanting to know the parts of you they have not yet found. Trick 10. Let people discover your depth gradually. Closely related to the art of not explaining everything is a subtler and more beautiful principle: the art of letting your depth be discovered rather than displayed. There is a great difference between showing someone your depth and letting them find it. When you show it, you are performing, presenting your qualities like items in a display case, hoping they will be admired. When you let it be found, you allow the other person the pleasure and the conviction of discovery, and discovery is far more powerful than presentation. A quality that someone finds in you themselves feels true to them in a way that a quality you announce never can. Think about how much of human interaction is quiet performance. People are constantly, often unconsciously, trying to signal their best qualities, their intelligence, their kindness, their success, their depth. They work these signals into conversation, steering toward topics that let them shine, mentioning accomplishments, demonstrating their finest traits. And while this is understandable, it often has the opposite of the intended effect. Displayed qualities can feel like claims, like advertising, and something in us instinctively discounts them. We trust what we discover far more than what we are told. The person who is always showing us how deep they are triggers our skepticism. The person whose depth we stumble upon on our own earns our genuine admiration. Consider what it feels like to discover a hidden depth in someone. You have known a person for a while, formed a certain impression of them, and then something happens. They say something unexpectedly wise, reveal an unusual talent, show a side of themselves you had not suspected, and suddenly your whole sense of them expands. That moment of discovery is thrilling. It feels like uncovering treasure. And crucially, because you found it yourself, you believe it completely, and you feel a small thrill of connection, as though you have been let into something. The person who lets you discover their depth gives you these moments as gifts, and each one deepens your fascination. Now contrast that with the person who tells you early and often how deep and complex and interesting they are. Even if it is all true, the telling flattens it. There is no discovery, no thrill, no sense of uncovering something. There is just a person making claims about themselves, and claims, however impressive, do not move us the way discoveries do. The paradox is that the more someone insists on their own depth, the shallower they can come to seem, because the insisting itself reveals a kind of insecurity, a need to be seen as deep rather than a quiet confidence in simply being so. There is real psychology in why discovery is so much more powerful than display. When we work to understand something ourselves, when we piece it together from clues and observations, we become invested in it in a way we never do with information handed to us. This is true of ideas, and it is true of people. The depth you discover in someone becomes, in a sense, partly yours. You found it, you earned it, you put the pieces together, and that investment binds you to the person. The other person becomes more precious to you because understanding them was an achievement, a process you participated in, rather than a summary you were handed. Consider a specific example. Imagine two people, both genuinely thoughtful and kind. The first works these qualities into every conversation, talks about the deep books they read, mentions their charitable work, steers discussions toward profound topics to demonstrate their seriousness. The second simply lives their thoughtfulness and kindness quietly, and lets it show through in small, unguarded moments. A surprisingly gentle way of handling a difficult situation, an offhand comment that reveals real wisdom, an act of kindness done without any announcement. The first person's depth is on display and, oddly, easy to doubt. The second person's depth is discovered, and therefore believed completely and treasured. The other person walks away from the second thinking, there is so much more to them than I realized, which is exactly the thought that fuels ongoing fascination. This principle asks for a certain restraint, and that restraint is itself a sign of depth. It takes security to not display your best qualities, to trust that they will be found without your pointing at them, to let yourself be underestimated at first rather than rushing to prove your worth. The person who cannot bear to be underestimated, who must immediately establish how impressive they are, reveals a fragility beneath the impressiveness. The person who is content to let their qualities emerge in their own time reveals a quiet, deep confidence. They know what they are, and they do not need to convince anyone of it in the first hour. That confidence is itself one of the most attractive forms of depth. There is also a practical beauty to this gradual unfolding, which is that it makes a connection sustainable over time. If you display all your best qualities at once, you have, in a sense, spent your capital. There is nowhere to go but down as familiarity sets in. But if you let your depth emerge slowly, there is always more to discover, and the connection keeps deepening rather than plateauing. Months in, years in, the other person is still finding new dimensions in you, still being surprised, still expanding their sense of who you are. This is a large part of what keeps long connections alive, the ongoing discovery of new depths, rather than the slow exhaustion of qualities revealed all at once. It should be said that this is not about hiding your light or being falsely modest in a way that is its own kind of performance. False modesty, the fishing for reassurance disguised as humility, is transparent and unattractive. This is something quieter and more genuine, simply not making your qualities the point, not steering everything toward your own impressiveness, letting who you are come through in how you live and act rather than in what you announce about yourself. It is the difference between a person who tells you they are wise and a person who simply says something wise and lets you notice. The second needs no announcement, and is all the more powerful for it. So let yourself be discovered. Resist the urge to display your depth, to prove your worth quickly, to make sure the other person knows how much there is to you. Trust that your real qualities will emerge on their own, in unguarded moments, through how you actually are rather than through what you claim. Give the other person the pleasure and the conviction of finding these things for themselves. Be willing to be underestimated at first, secure in the knowledge that the slow discovery of who you are will bind people to you far more strongly than any display ever could. The deepest people are almost never the ones announcing their depth. They are the ones in whom others keep finding, to their delight, that there is always more. Trick 11. Keep a private inner world. Every truly compelling person carries something that cannot be fully accessed, a private inner world, a set of thoughts and dreams and depths that belong to them alone and are never entirely shared with anyone. This is not secrecy in the cold sense, not the hiding of things that ought to be known. It is something more essential. It is the possession of a self that is not endlessly available for consumption, an inner life that remains one's own. And paradoxically, the person who keeps such a private world is far more magnetic than the person who pours all of themselves outward, holding nothing back. Consider what it means to be entirely accessible. Some people give away all of themselves to everyone, every thought spoken, every feeling broadcast, every corner of the inner life open for inspection. There is a kind of generosity in it, but there is also a kind of loss. A person who is entirely available becomes, in a subtle way, less substantial. There is no center that is theirs alone, no depth that has not been offered up, no private ground from which they operate. And others sense this. They sense that there is no mystery left, no hidden reserve, nothing held back, and something in them stops reaching, because there is nothing left to reach for. Now consider the person who keeps a private inner world. You feel, in their presence, that there is more to them than they show, not because they are cold or withholding, but because they carry themselves as someone with depths that are their own. They have thoughts they do not always share, dreams they hold close, an inner life that continues whether or not anyone is watching. This creates a subtle gravity. You sense the existence of the hidden reserve even though you cannot see into it, and its very existence makes the person more substantial, more real, more worth knowing. There is something there, something that is not for everyone, and that something draws you in. This is partly about a sense of self that does not depend on others. The person with a rich private inner world has a relationship with themselves that is not contingent on being witnessed. They think their own thoughts, pursue their own inner questions, tend their own dreams, entirely apart from anyone else's attention. This inner self-sufficiency is deeply attractive because it signals wholeness. Here is a person who is complete on their own, who does not need to broadcast every inner event to feel that it is real, who has a self that exists independently of anyone's gaze. We are drawn to such people because their completeness is reassuring and, in a way, aspirational. They are not leaning on us to complete them. Consider a specific picture of this. Imagine someone who has a private practice they never mention casually. Perhaps they write, or paint, or think deeply about certain questions, or have an inner spiritual life they hold close. They do not hide it exactly, but they do not offer it up for approval either. It is simply theirs. When, occasionally, a corner of this inner world is revealed to someone they trust, it lands as something precious, a genuine gift, because it is clearly not something they show to everyone. The rarity of the access makes the access meaningful. Contrast this with someone who tells everyone everything about their inner life at the first opportunity. The revelations, however intimate, mean less precisely because they are given away so freely. There is real psychology in the value of the withheld. Things that are freely available to all tend to be valued less than things that are rare and selectively shared. This is true of material things, and it is true of the self. When you keep a private inner world and share it only selectively, with people who have earned that access, the sharing becomes an act of real intimacy, a gift with weight. When you give all of yourself to everyone, the gift loses its meaning, because it is given to all comers indiscriminately. The private inner world is what makes intimacy possible, because intimacy is precisely the selective sharing of what is normally kept private. Without a private world, There is nothing to become intimate about. This principle also protects something essential in you. When you keep a private inner world, you keep a part of yourself that is not subject to anyone else's opinion, not shaped by anyone else's reactions, not dependent on anyone else's approval. This is a source of strength and stability. The person who has broadcast everything has, in a sense, handed their entire self over to the judgment of others, and so their sense of self rises and falls with every reaction. The person who keeps a private core has a stable center that no one can touch, a ground they stand on that is entirely their own. This inner stability is not only good for them, it is attractive to others, who sense the steadiness it produces. It is important not to confuse this with emotional walls or the refusal to be vulnerable. Keeping a private inner world does not mean being closed off, never sharing, never letting anyone in. That would be its own kind of impoverishment, and it would make real intimacy impossible. The point is not to share nothing, but to always have something that is yours alone, to not empty yourself out completely into any relationship, to retain a core self that continues to exist independently. You can be deeply intimate, deeply vulnerable, deeply connected, and still keep a private inner world. In fact, the healthiest intimacy comes from two people who each retain their own inner depths and choose to share parts of them, rather than two people who have dissolved entirely into each other with nothing left that is their own. There is a quiet freedom in this as well. The person who keeps a private inner world is not performing their whole life for an audience. They have a place to retreat to, a self that is not on display, an inner sanctuary that belongs only to them. This freedom shows in how they carry themselves, with an ease and a groundedness that comes from not needing to share everything, from having a home within themselves that no one else can enter uninvited. That self-possession is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have, and it comes directly from the possession of an inner world that is genuinely one's own. So tend your inner world, and keep some of it private. Have thoughts you do not immediately share, dreams you hold close, depths that are yours alone. Not out of coldness or fear, but out of a recognition that a self worth knowing is a self that is not entirely available for consumption, that intimacy requires a private world to share from, that your completeness depends on having a center that belongs only to you. Share selectively, with those who have earned it, and let the sharing be meaningful because it is rare. In a world where so many people give all of themselves away to everyone, the person who keeps a private inner world carries a quiet gravity that others can feel and are drawn toward, without quite knowing why. Trick 12. Speak with certainty, not volume. There is a common mistake that people make when they want to be taken seriously, to seem strong, to have their words carry weight. They get louder. They raise their voice, add force and intensity, push harder to make their point land. It feels like strength in the moment, and sometimes it even works for an instant. But volume is a crude instrument, and it usually signals the opposite of what the speaker intends. Loudness reads, at a deep level, as a loss of control, as the sound of someone who needs to overpower because they cannot simply command. Real authority does not shout. It speaks with quiet certainty, and quiet certainty is far more powerful than any amount of volume. Consider the difference between two ways of stating the same thing. The first is delivered loudly, forcefully, with rising intensity, as if the speaker is trying to push the words into you by sheer force. The second is delivered quietly, calmly, with a steady conviction that does not need to raise itself at all, a simple, unhurried statement of what the speaker believes to be true. The first can feel aggressive, even a little desperate, as though the volume is compensating for something. The second feels grounded, secure, certain. And it is the second, almost always, that carries the greater authority. We are far more persuaded by calm conviction than by loud insistence, because calm conviction suggests the speaker is so sure of what they are saying that they feel no need to force it. The psychology here is worth understanding. When someone is genuinely certain of something, secure in it, they do not need to push. Their security is evident in their ease. It is only when we are unsure, when we sense our position is weak, when we fear we will not be believed, that we resort to force and volume, trying to make up in intensity what we lack in confidence. Listeners pick up on this instinctively. Loudness signals, underneath, I'm not sure you will believe me, so I'm going to push harder. Quiet certainty signals, I know this to be true, and I do not need to convince you by force. The second is far more convincing precisely because it is not trying so hard. Consider a specific scene. A disagreement arises, and one person begins to escalate, their voice climbing, their words coming faster and harder, pushing their point with increasing force. The other person does not match this. They stay quiet, calm, and simply state their position with steady conviction, unhurried and unbothered. Watch what happens to the dynamic. The loud person, despite their volume, begins to seem like the weaker one, the one who has lost their footing, the one who is being controlled by the situation. The quiet, certain person seems like the stronger one, the one in control, the one whose position must be solid because they feel no need to shout it. Volume, in this contrast, reveals weakness, and quiet certainty reveals strength. This principle extends beyond disagreements into every kind of communication. When you express an opinion, a preference, a boundary, a feeling, the way you deliver it shapes how it is received. Delivered with anxious over-explanation, with a rising and uncertain tone, with excessive justification, it invites doubt and pushback. Delivered with calm, simple certainty, this is what I think, this is what I want, this is where I stand, it invites respect and agreement. People tend to accept the frames that others present with genuine confidence, and to question the frames presented with anxiety. Your certainty, or lack of it, is itself a large part of the message, often larger than the words. There is a particular application of this in the realm of attraction and boundaries. When you state a preference or a limit with quiet certainty, it lands as self-respect. I don't do that, said simply and without apology, communicates a settled sense of self. The same boundary stated with anxious over-explanation, with excessive apology and justification, communicates uncertainty and invites the other person to push against it. People respect the boundaries that are stated with calm conviction, and they test the boundaries that are stated with anxiety. Quiet certainty about what you will and will not accept is one of the clearest signals of self-worth, and self-worth is deeply attractive. It is essential to understand that quiet certainty is not the same as rigidity, arrogance, or the refusal to ever be wrong. Real certainty is compatible with openness. You can hold your position with calm conviction and still be willing to hear other views, still be capable of changing your mind when given good reason, still remain humble about the limits of what you know. The certainty being described here is not the certainty of the closed mind. It is the certainty of the settled self, a person who knows what they think and feel and value, who states it clearly and without anxiety, but who is not threatened by disagreement and does not need to dominate. That combination of conviction and openness is far more powerful than either loud dogmatism or anxious wavering. Consider also what quiet certainty does over time in a relationship. The person who communicates with steady conviction becomes someone others can rely on, someone whose word means something, someone whose stated positions can be trusted because they are not constantly shifting with the emotional weather. There is a groundedness to them that makes them feel safe to depend on. By contrast, the person who is always loud, always pushing, always escalating, becomes exhausting and unreliable, because their intensity makes everything feel like a battle. And the person who is always anxious and uncertain, whose every statement dissolves into qualification and apology, becomes hard to trust in a different way, because you can never be sure where they actually stand. Quiet certainty threads between these, offering both strength and steadiness. Developing this quality is less about technique than about actually becoming more settled in yourself. Quiet certainty comes from genuinely knowing what you think and value, from having done the inner work of figuring out where you stand, from a self-respect that does not need external validation. When you are anxious and uncertain inside, no amount of vocal technique will fully hide it. When you are genuinely settled inside, the quiet certainty comes naturally, because you are simply speaking from a place of real security. So the deepest work here is inner, becoming the kind of person who knows their own mind, respects their own judgment, and does not need to shout to feel heard. So let go of volume as a tool of strength. When you want your words to carry weight, do not push harder, Speak with calm, steady conviction, and let the certainty itself do the work. State your opinions, your preferences, your boundaries simply and without anxious over-explanation. Trust that quiet confidence is more persuasive than loud insistence, that people respect the calm certainty of the settled self far more than the forced intensity of the person who needs to shout. In a world full of noise, the person who speaks quietly and means it stands out, and their few calm words often carry more weight than everyone else's shouting combined. Trick 13. Create curiosity instead of chasing validation. There are two fundamentally different postures a person can take in their pursuit of connection, and they lead to almost opposite results. The first is the posture of chasing validation, of seeking approval, working to be liked, trying to prove one's worth, reaching outward for the reassurance that one is wanted. The second is the posture of creating curiosity, of being interesting enough and self-possessed enough that others reach toward you, wanting to know more, wanting to be closer. The first posture, however hard it works, tends to push people away. The second, almost effortlessly, draws them in. Understanding the difference between these two postures may be one of the most important things a person can learn about human connection. Consider what chasing validation actually looks like. It is the person who agrees with everything, who laughs a little too eagerly, who works visibly hard to be liked, who seeks constant reassurance that they are wanted, who molds themselves to what they think the other person wants them to be. Underneath all of it is a question being silently asked over and over. Do you like me? Am I good enough? Please tell me I am wanted. And here is the difficult truth. Other people feel that question, even when it is not spoken, and it subtly repels them. Not because they are cruel, but because neediness creates a kind of pressure, and because a person who is visibly seeking approval seems, by that very seeking, to lack something, to be operating from a place of insufficiency rather than fullness. Now consider the posture of creating curiosity. This is the person who is genuinely engaged in their own life, who has their own interests and opinions and directions, who is warm and interested in others but not dependent on their approval. They do not agree with everything. They have their own views, offered without anxiety. They do not seek reassurance. They seem settled in themselves. And precisely because they are not chasing, they create a kind of open space, a question in the other person's mind. Who is this person? What are they about? Why do they seem so at ease? What would it take to get closer to them? That question is curiosity. And curiosity is the engine of attraction. The person who creates it, rather than chasing validation, has others doing the reaching. The psychology here comes down to a basic asymmetry in how we value things. We tend to want what we have to reach for, and to discount what reaches for us. This is not fair or admirable, but it is deeply human. The person who chases us, who makes their approval and interest freely and abundantly available, who works to win us, we tend, sadly, to take them for granted, because they have made themselves easy. The person who does not chase, who has their own full life, whose interest must be earned rather than simply received, we tend to value them more, to work for their attention, to want them precisely because they are not simply handing themselves over. Chasing lowers your perceived value. Being someone worth being curious about raises it. Consider a specific contrast. Two people are interested in someone. The first makes their interest completely obvious and works hard to win the person over. Constant availability, eager agreement, visible effort, frequent reaching out, a clear message of "I want you, please want me back." The second is warm and clearly interested too, but remains rooted in their own life, offers their genuine self rather than a mold version, does not chase, and lets their interest be felt without making it a desperate campaign. In most cases, the second person creates far more attraction than the first, even though the first is trying much harder. The effort of the first reads as neediness, the ease of the second reads as value. The one who chased less is wanted more. It is crucial to understand what this is and is not. Creating curiosity instead of chasing validation is not about playing games, being cold, pretending disinterest, or manipulating someone with false unavailability. Those tactics are just chasing in disguise, and they tend to backfire or to build connections founded on anxiety rather than genuine warmth. The real principle is much healthier and more sincere. It is about actually having a full life and a settled sense of self, so that you do not need the other person's validation to feel okay. It is about offering genuine warmth and interest without the desperate edge of needing to be approved of. The curiosity you create is not manufactured through games. It is the natural result of being a whole person who is not operating from lack. This points to the deeper root of the whole matter, which is your relationship with yourself. The person who chases validation is, underneath, seeking from others a sense of worth they do not feel from within. The person who creates curiosity has, to a meaningful degree, found that sense of worth internally, and so they do not need to extract it from every interaction. This is why the deepest work here is not about behavior but about self-worth. When you genuinely value yourself, when your sense of being okay does not depend on any particular person's approval, you naturally stop chasing, and you naturally become more attractive, because the neediness that repels is gone and the security that draws is present. You cannot fully fake this. It flows from actually developing a stable relationship with your own worth. Consider what it feels like to be around each type of person. Around the validation chaser, you may feel a subtle pressure, a sense of being needed in a way that is slightly draining, an awareness that this person's okayness depends partly on your approval. Around the curiosity creator, you feel something more like invitation and freedom. Here is a person who is fine on their own, who is offering connection from fullness rather than need, whose interest in you is a gift rather than a demand. The second is far more pleasant to be around, and far more attractive, because there is no pressure in it, only the pull of genuine, unneedy warmth. The shift from chasing to creating curiosity often requires letting go of a deep fear. The fear that if you do not chase, if you do not work hard to be liked, you will be overlooked, unwanted, left behind. This fear drives an enormous amount of validation-seeking behavior. But the truth is usually the reverse. The chasing that the fear produces is exactly what pushes people away, while the security that comes from facing and releasing the fear is exactly what draws them in. Learning to trust that you do not have to chase, that you are worth being curious about as you are, that the right people will reach toward you when you stop reaching desperately toward them. This is both a psychological healing and a practical transformation in how others respond to you. So examine your own posture. Notice where you chase validation, where you seek approval, mold yourself, reach anxiously for reassurance, work to be liked, and practice, instead, the posture of the settled self who creates curiosity, engaged in your own life, offering genuine warmth without desperation, secure enough that others must reach toward you rather than the other way around. Do the inner work of finding your worth within, so that this posture becomes real rather than performed. In the end, the person who chases is running after connection that keeps receding, while the person who has become genuinely worth being curious about simply stands in their own fullness and watches others come to them. Trick 14. Let your absence create contrast. Presence is only felt fully against the background of absence. This is one of those simple truths that shapes human connection far more than most people realize. When someone is always there, always available, always present, their presence gradually loses its impact, not because it is not valued, but because it has become the constant, unremarkable background of life, and we stop noticing what never varies. It is absence that makes presence visible again. The person who understands how to let a little absence create contrast understands something essential about how to remain valued rather than taken for granted. Think about how quickly we adapt to constant presence. At first, a new person's attention feels wonderful, precious, exciting. But if that attention becomes constant, unbroken, always available, something happens over time. We adapt to it. It becomes normal, expected, part of the fixed background. And the human mind stops registering fixed backgrounds. The very availability that felt so good at first becomes invisible through its constancy. This is not ingratitude. It is simply how attention and adaptation work. We notice change, contrast, variation. We stop noticing what is always the same. And constant, unvarying presence eventually becomes something we no longer really see. Now consider what absence does. When someone who is usually present is, for a while, absent, busy with their own life, temporarily unavailable, briefly gone, their absence creates a gap, and in that gap, their presence becomes visible again. We feel the space they normally fill. We notice, suddenly, how much they add, precisely because for a moment they are not adding it. And when they return, their presence lands with renewed force, freshly appreciated, no longer invisible. Absence resets our perception. It pulls presence out of the background and makes it vivid again. The person who allows for some absence keeps their presence from ever fading into the unnoticed constant. There is a specific example that makes this clear. Imagine someone who is always instantly available, replies immediately every time, is always free, never has anything else going on, is perpetually present and reachable. At first this feels lovely, but over time it subtly lowers their value. Their constant availability comes to seem like they have nothing else, no full life of their own, no other demands on their time, and this both makes them less intriguing and makes their presence less special because it is unlimited. Now imagine someone who is warm and present when present, but also clearly has their own full life, who is sometimes absorbed in their own pursuits, not always instantly available, occasionally away living their own life. Their presence, precisely because it is not unlimited, retains its value. When they are there, it means something, because they are not always there. The psychology of this connects to scarcity and appreciation. We value what is not unlimited. Something that is always available in infinite supply tends to feel less precious than something that is finite, that we cannot have endlessly, that we must sometimes do without. This is not because the thing itself has changed, but because our appreciation is sharpened by limits and dulled by abundance. A person's presence follows the same rule. Unlimited, it becomes ordinary. Punctuated by absence, it retains its preciousness. The absence is not a withholding of something good. It is what keeps the good thing from fading into the unnoticed background of constant availability. It is essential to distinguish this from game playing, because this principle is often distorted into manipulative advice about deliberately withdrawing to make someone anxious, playing hard to get, or strategically ignoring people to increase their interest. That is not what is meant here, and that kind of manufactured, calculated absence tends to create anxiety and erode trust rather than build healthy attraction. The absence that creates healthy contrast is not a manipulation. It is the natural result of having a full life of your own. It is not about withdrawing to punish or to provoke. It is about being a person who has their own pursuits, their own world, their own demands on their time, so that you are not perpetually, artificially available. The contrast comes from genuine fullness, not from strategic withholding. This points to something deeper and healthier than any tactic, the importance of actually having a full and independent life. The person who has their own passions, friendships, work, interests, and pursuits will naturally have periods of absence, not because they are engineering distance, but because they are genuinely engaged in their own existence. This natural absence creates healthy contrast automatically, and it also makes the person more interesting and more attractive in the first place, because they are clearly a whole person with a life of their own rather than someone whose entire world revolves around one relationship. The best version of this principle is not learning to strategically withdraw. It is genuinely having enough going on in your own life that constant availability was never on the table. Consider what constant presence unintentionally communicates versus what a full life communicates. The person who is always available, always present, always reachable, unintentionally signals that they have nothing else going on, that this relationship is their whole world, that they are perhaps a little empty apart from it. This is not attractive. It can even feel like a subtle burden. The person with a full life signals the opposite, that they are complete on their own, that they are choosing to share their time rather than having nothing else to do with it, that their presence is a gift given from abundance rather than a dependency born of emptiness. The absence that comes from a full life is therefore doubly powerful. It creates contrast that keeps presence valued, and it reveals a wholeness that is attractive in itself. There is also a kindness in this, though it may not seem so at first. When you allow for some absence, when you do not make yourself endlessly, constantly available, you give the other person the gift of missing you. Missing someone is not a bad feeling. It is the feeling of appreciating their presence through its temporary absence, of realizing how much they matter, of looking forward to their return. The person who is always there denies the other the chance to ever miss them, and in doing so, denies them one of the ways that appreciation renews itself. A little absence lets the other person feel the value of your presence freshly, again and again, rather than letting it fade into the invisible constant. So live your own full life, and let the natural absences that come with it create their contrast. Do not make yourself endlessly, instantly, constantly available. Not as a tactic, but as a natural expression of being a whole person with your own world. When you are present, be fully present, warm and engaged. And when your own life calls you away for a time, let it, trusting that the absence will only make your presence more vivid and more valued when you return. In a connection, the goal is not to be constantly there until your presence fades into the unnoticed background, but to be a whole person whose presence, punctuated by the rhythms of your own full life, never loses its power to be felt. Trick 15. Respond thoughtfully instead of instantly. In a world that has become addicted to instant response, there is a quiet power in the pause. Everything now pushes us toward immediacy, instant replies, instant reactions, instant availability. The moment a message arrives, we feel we must answer. The moment a question is asked, we feel we must respond. The moment something is said, we feel we must react. But this reflex toward instant response, however normal it has become, subtly diminishes us. The person who has learned to respond thoughtfully rather than instantly, to allow a small space between stimulus and response, carries a weight and a presence that the instant reactor never quite achieves. Consider first what instant response signals. When you reply to everything immediately, react to everything at once, answer every question the moment it lands, you communicate, without meaning to, a certain lack of weight. Your responses seem automatic rather than considered, reflexive rather than chosen. And in some contexts, particularly in matters of attention and availability, instant response can signal that you have nothing else going on, that you are simply waiting, poised to reply, with nothing more pressing to occupy you. There is an eagerness in the instant response that can undercut your value, a sense of a person too available, too ready, too quick to give themselves over. Now consider the thoughtful response, the response that comes after a pause. When you allow a small space before you reply, a beat of consideration before you speak, a little time before you respond to a message, several things happen. Your response gains weight, because it appears to have been considered rather than fired off automatically. You signal that you think before you speak, that your words are chosen rather than reflexive. And you communicate, subtly, that you have your own life and your own rhythms, that you are not simply waiting, poised to respond to every stimulus the instant it arrives. The pause gives your response substance, and gives you a quality of considered presence that the instant reactor lacks. This is especially powerful in conversation, in the small pause before you speak. Most people, when asked a question or presented with something, respond instantly, the words tumbling out before the thought is fully formed. The person who instead allows a brief, thoughtful pause before responding, who lets a beat of considered silence exist before they speak, signals a mind that is actually thinking, actually weighing, actually present to the question rather than just reflexively answering it. This makes their responses feel more considered, more genuine, more worth hearing. And it makes their attention feel more valuable, because a considered response is clearly a response you have earned, rather than an automatic reaction anyone could have triggered. There is real psychology in the value of the considered response. When someone pauses before responding to us, we tend to feel that they took our words seriously, that they actually thought about what we said rather than just reacting to it. The pause communicates respect for the weight of the exchange. By contrast, the instant response can feel dismissive, as though the person did not really need to think about what we said because they had their reply ready before we finished. Paradoxically, then, the pause, which might seem like less engagement, actually communicates more consideration, more respect, more genuine presence to what was actually said. The thoughtful responder makes people feel more heard, not less. Consider a specific application in the realm of communication and availability. Someone sends you a message, and the instant reflex is to reply immediately, to show you are attentive and interested. But instant replies, especially consistently, can subtly signal overeagerness and constant availability, and can train the other person to expect immediate response in a way that puts you in a reactive posture. The person who instead replies when it is natural for them to reply, warmly and genuinely, but according to their own rhythms rather than an anxious need to respond at once, signals a fuller life and a more grounded presence. This is not about deliberately delaying to play games. It is about not being ruled by the compulsion to respond instantly, about letting your responses follow your own natural rhythm rather than the anxious pull of immediacy. It is important to distinguish thoughtful response from cold or strategic delay. This is not about deliberately making people wait as a tactic, about calculated slowness designed to manipulate, about withholding response to gain some upper hand. Those distortions turn a healthy principle into an anxious game. The genuine version is simpler and more sincere. It is about not being a slave to immediacy, about allowing yourself the space to actually consider before you respond, about following your own natural rhythms rather than the compulsive pull to react at once. The pause is not a weapon. It is a space for genuine consideration and a sign of a grounded, unhurried presence. There is a deeper quality of self that this principle both requires and develops. The person who responds instantly to everything is, in a sense, being controlled by their environment, reacting to every stimulus the moment it arrives, ruled by the compulsion to respond. The person who can pause, who can allow a space between stimulus and response, has a kind of inner freedom. They are not automatically driven by every incoming demand, but can choose their response from a place of consideration. This inner freedom, this space between stimulus and response, is one of the marks of a settled and self-possessed person, and it shows in how they carry themselves, with an unhurried quality that others find grounding and attractive. Consider what it feels like to be around each type of person. The instant reactor can feel a little anxious to be around, always poised to respond, always reactive, their attention slightly frantic. The thoughtful responder feels grounding to be around, unhurried, considered, present in a way that is calming. Their pauses give conversations room to breathe. Their considered responses make you feel actually heard. Their unhurried rhythm suggests a person who is settled in themselves, not driven by the anxious compulsion of immediacy. This grounded quality is deeply attractive, because it offers, in a frantic world, the rare experience of being with someone who is not rushing. So practice the pause. Allow a small space between what happens and how you respond to it, a beat of consideration before you speak, a natural rhythm rather than an anxious immediacy in how you reply. Not as a tactic or a game, but as a way of being more considered, more present, more grounded, and less ruled by the compulsion to react at once. Let your responses have the weight that comes from genuine consideration. Let your attention be something earned through your thoughtful engagement rather than something automatically dispensed. In a world addicted to instant response, the person who has recovered the power of the thoughtful pause carries a presence and a weight that the endless instant reactors, for all their quickness, never quite attain. Trick 16. Maintain mystery without becoming cold. There is a delicate balance at the heart of lasting attraction, and it lives in the tension between two qualities that seem, at first, to pull in opposite directions: warmth and mystery. Warmth draws people close. It makes them feel safe, welcome, cared for. Mystery keeps them intrigued. It makes them want to know more, to keep reaching, to keep discovering. Too much warmth without mystery, and a person becomes an open book, fully known and therefore no longer intriguing. Too much mystery without warmth, and a person becomes cold, distant, closed off, someone you cannot get close to and eventually stop trying to. The art is to hold both at once, to be genuinely warm and genuinely mysterious, so that people feel both welcomed and intrigued, both close to you and always wanting to be closer. Consider first the failure mode of too much warmth without mystery. This is the person who is completely open, who shares everything, who holds nothing back, who is entirely known and available. Their warmth is real and lovely, but without any mystery to accompany it, it eventually loses its pull. There is nothing left to discover, nothing to wonder about, nothing to reach for. The person is fully mapped, and fully mapped territory, however pleasant, does not compel exploration. The warmth becomes comfortable but no longer exciting, familiar but no longer intriguing. Something essential to ongoing attraction has quietly gone missing. Now consider the opposite failure mode: too much mystery without warmth. This is the person who is closed off, guarded, distant, hard to read, who reveals little and keeps everyone at arm's length. There is intrigue here, at first, but without warmth to make the intrigue inviting, it curdles into coldness. People may be curious about such a person initially, but curiosity without warmth eventually gives way to frustration and withdrawal. If getting close feels impossible, if the mystery never opens even a little, if there is no warmth to reward the effort of reaching, people stop reaching. Cold mystery pushes people away as surely as excessive openness bores them. Mystery alone is not enough. It must be paired with warmth to draw people in rather than shut them out. The powerful combination is warmth and mystery held together. Picture a person who is genuinely warm, who makes you feel welcome, cared for, safe, seen, and who, at the same time, retains a certain mystery, an inner depth not fully revealed, qualities and dimensions you sense but have not yet fully discovered. This combination is magnetic. The warmth makes you want to come close. The mystery makes you want to keep coming closer, to keep discovering, to keep reaching for the parts not yet revealed. You feel both the comfort of the warmth and the pull of the intrigue. You are drawn in and kept reaching at once. This is the balance that creates not just initial attraction but lasting fascination, the kind that does not fade as familiarity grows. Consider how this plays out concretely. A warm but mysterious person is genuinely open in the ways that make you feel close to them, emotionally present, caring, attentive, real. But they also retain a private inner world, do not explain every detail of themselves. Let their depth be discovered gradually rather than displayed all at once. So you feel deeply connected to them and yet always aware that there is more to know. Each conversation brings you closer and simultaneously reveals new dimensions to explore. The connection deepens without ever being exhausted, because the warmth keeps you close while the mystery keeps the discovery ongoing. This is why such people remain fascinating over years, not just weeks. The psychology of this balance connects to two different human needs that both must be met. We need safety and closeness, the warmth that makes us feel welcome and cared for, that lets us relax and trust and open up. And we need novelty and discovery, the mystery that keeps us intrigued, engaged, reaching, that prevents the deadening of interest that comes with complete familiarity. A person who offers only warmth meets the first need but starves the second, and attraction fades into comfortable boredom. A person who offers only mystery meets the second need but starves the first, and attraction curdles into cold frustration. The person who offers both meets both needs at once, and that is why they are so compelling. They satisfy our need for closeness and our need for discovery simultaneously. It is worth being clear that maintaining mystery in this healthy way is not about being fake, manipulative, or deliberately withholding to create an artificial sense of intrigue. Manufactured mystery, the strategic withholding designed to keep someone guessing, tends to feel hollow and eventually to erode trust. The genuine mystery being described here is not manufactured. It is the natural mystery of a person with real depth, a rich inner world, qualities that genuinely take time to discover. You do not have to fake mystery if you are actually a deep and multifaceted person with an inner life of your own. The mystery comes naturally from your genuine depth. The work is simply to not undermine it by explaining everything, while also not undermining your warmth by closing yourself off. The deeper truth here is that both the warmth and the mystery should be genuine expressions of who you actually are. The warmth comes from actually caring about people, being genuinely present and attentive and kind. The mystery comes from actually being a person of depth, with a private inner world, with qualities that unfold over time. Neither is a performance. Together they express a whole person, someone who is genuinely warm and genuinely deep, genuinely close and genuinely their own. When both are real, The balance between them is not a difficult act to maintain, but a natural expression of a rich and integrated self. The people who most embody this balance are usually not performing it. They are simply being fully who they are, warm and deep at once. Consider what it means to be this kind of person over the long arc of a relationship. In the early stages, the warmth draws the other person close and the mystery keeps them fascinated. But the real gift of this balance shows itself over time. Because you are genuinely warm, the closeness deepens into real intimacy and trust. And because you retain genuine mystery, that intimacy never exhausts itself into boredom. There is always more to discover, new depths to explore, dimensions still unfolding. This is how connections stay alive over years, not by choosing between closeness and intrigue, but by maintaining both, so that the relationship keeps deepening in intimacy while never losing its capacity for discovery. So cultivate both. Be genuinely warm, present, caring, attentive, the kind of person others feel safe and welcome with. And retain genuine mystery, a private inner world, a depth that unfolds gradually, dimensions not immediately or fully revealed. Do not let your warmth collapse into complete openness that leaves nothing to discover, and do not let your mystery harden into coldness that pushes people away. Hold both, as natural expressions of a whole and deep person. In the balance between warmth and mystery lies the secret of attraction that does not fade, the pull that keeps people both close to you and always reaching for more. Trick 17. Make people feel chosen, not managed. There is a profound difference between making someone feel chosen and making them feel managed, and it is a difference that people register instantly, even when they could not put it into words. To feel chosen is to feel that someone genuinely selected you, out of all the possibilities, because of who you specifically are, that their attention and care flow from real regard for you as an individual. To feel managed is to feel that someone is handling you, working a technique on you, treating you as a problem to be solved or a target to be won rather than a person to be cherished. The first creates deep loyalty and warmth. The second, however skillfully executed, creates a subtle coldness, a sense of being processed rather than loved. And people can nearly always tell the difference. Consider what it feels like to be genuinely chosen. Someone gives you their attention not because they are working an angle, but because they actually find you fascinating. They remember things about you not as a technique, but because you genuinely matter to them. They make time for you not to manipulate, but because they truly want to. Being chosen in this way is one of the deepest human satisfactions. It answers a longing almost everyone carries, the longing to be specifically wanted, specifically valued, specifically preferred, not as one interchangeable person among many, but as this particular irreplaceable individual. The person who makes others feel genuinely chosen touches something very deep, and inspires a loyalty and warmth that no technique alone could ever produce. Now consider what it feels like to be managed. Even when the behaviors look similar on the surface, the attention, the remembering, the making of time, something feels different underneath when they flow from technique rather than genuine regard. There is a coldness to being managed, a sense that you are the object of someone's strategy rather than the recipient of their genuine care. People pick up on this at a level below conscious awareness. They sense when someone's warmth is calculated, when their attention is a tactic, when they are being worked rather than cherished. And even if they cannot name it, they feel a subtle withdrawal, a guardedness, a reluctance to fully trust or attach. Being managed, however skillfully, does not inspire the loyalty that being chosen does. It inspires awareness, a sense of being handled. This distinction cuts to the heart of everything in this whole collection of principles, and it deserves to be stated plainly. All of these principles, the understanding, the presence, the mystery, the calm, the listening, can be practiced in two fundamentally different spirits. They can be practiced as techniques, as tactics for winning and managing people, in which case they take on the cold quality of manipulation and ultimately fail to create genuine connection. Or they can be practiced as expressions of genuine care, as ways of loving people well, in which case they create the deep warmth of feeling truly chosen. The behaviors may look identical from the outside. The spirit underneath them makes all the difference, and people feel that spirit even when they cannot see it. Consider a specific example. Two people both remember a detail you mentioned and bring it up later. The first does it as a technique, having read that remembering details makes people feel special, deploying the behavior strategically to produce an effect. The second does it because they genuinely care about you and your life, and the detail stayed with them naturally because you matter to them. On the surface, the behavior is the same, but there is often something subtly different in how it lands, a warmth or a coldness underneath, a sense of genuine care or of technique being applied. Over time, and sometimes immediately, people can tell which is which. The genuinely caring version creates real connection. The technical version, however polished, eventually reveals its hollowness. The psychology here is about authenticity and the deep human ability to detect it. Human beings are remarkably sensitive to the difference between genuine care and performed care, between being valued and being handled. This detection often operates below conscious awareness. We may not be able to articulate why someone's warmth feels cold, but we feel it. This sensitivity exists because, over the long history of human social life, being able to tell who genuinely cares about us from who is merely using us has been enormously important. So we have finely tuned instruments for detecting the spirit underneath behavior, and those instruments register the difference between being chosen and being managed even when the outward actions are the same. This means that the deepest and most important principle in all of attraction and connection is not any technique at all, but the genuine care from which the techniques should flow. If you actually care about people, actually find them fascinating, actually value them as individuals, then all the behaviors, the listening, the remembering, the presence, the attention, flow naturally and carry the warmth of genuine regard. People feel chosen because they are chosen. But if you are merely applying techniques to win people without genuine care underneath, the behaviors take on the coldness of management, and people feel handled rather than cherished, no matter how skilled you are. The care is not an optional addition to the techniques. It is the essential thing that makes them work at all. There is a freeing implication in this. It means you do not have to become a master manipulator, do not have to perfect a set of tactics, do not have to manage people skillfully. You have to actually care. And genuine care, it turns out, is not only more ethical than manipulation. It is also more effective, because it produces the real warmth that people can feel and that manipulation can only imitate. The person who genuinely cares, who is authentically interested in others, who values people as individuals, will naturally make others feel chosen, and will inspire the deep loyalty and warmth that no amount of technique alone could produce. The whole thing, in the end, comes back to the reality of your regard for other people. So examine the spirit in which you approach connection. Are you trying to manage people, to win them, to work techniques on them to produce an effect? Or are you genuinely caring about them, valuing them, finding them fascinating, and letting your behavior flow from that genuine regard? Make the second your foundation. Let your attention, your listening, your presence, your care all flow from actually valuing the person in front of you. When you do, people will feel chosen rather than managed, and that feeling of being genuinely selected and cherished will create a warmth and a loyalty far deeper than any technique could ever manufacture. In the end, the surest way to make people feel chosen is the simplest and the hardest: to actually choose them, genuinely, and let them feel the truth of it. Trick 18. Be fully present in conversations. In an age of endless distraction, the rarest and most precious gift one person can give another is their full, undivided presence. Think about how most conversations actually happen now. Two people talk while one or both glance at their phones, while their attention flickers between the person in front of them and a dozen other things, while their minds are half elsewhere, planning what to say next, thinking about something unrelated, scanning the environment, only partly there. Divided attention has become so normal that we barely notice it. And that is precisely why full presence, when someone actually offers it, is so extraordinarily powerful. To be completely present with another person, to give them all of your attention, is to give them something almost nobody gives anymore. Consider what full presence actually means. It means that when you are with someone, you are entirely with them. Your phone is away. Your attention is not flickering elsewhere. Your mind is not half planning your next remark or drifting to unrelated concerns. You are simply, completely, there, listening fully, watching their face, taking in not just their words but their whole presence, entirely focused on the person and the moment. This kind of presence is increasingly rare, and its rarity is exactly what makes it so affecting. When you give someone your full presence, you give them the experience of mattering completely, of being worth your entire attention, of being fully seen and fully received. In a distracted world, this is a profound gift. Now consider how it feels to receive full presence, because most people receive it so rarely that they have almost forgotten what it is like. When someone is completely present with you, fully attentive, entirely focused, giving you all of themselves in the moment, you feel it immediately, and it is deeply nourishing. You feel important, valued, seen. You feel that what you are saying matters, that you matter, that in this moment you have this person's complete regard. It is a feeling of being fully received, and it is one of the most satisfying experiences in human connection. People are starving for it, precisely because they so rarely get it. And so the person who can offer full presence becomes someone others are magnetically drawn to, someone in whose company they feel a rare and precious sense of mattering. The contrast with divided attention is stark, and worth feeling clearly. When someone is only half present with us, glancing at their phone, attention flickering, mind clearly elsewhere, we feel it, and it subtly diminishes us. We feel less important, less worth their full attention, a little unseen. Even if we do the same thing to others, being on the receiving end of divided attention leaves us feeling that we did not quite matter enough to command the person's whole focus. This is the ordinary texture of most modern interaction, a low-grade sense of not being fully received. And it is exactly why full presence stands out so sharply against this background. It gives people the increasingly rare experience of being someone's complete focus, of fully mattering. There is real psychology in why presence is so powerful. Attention is, in a very real sense, a form of love. Where we place our attention is where we place ourselves, our regard, our care. To give someone our full attention is to say, without words, "You matter enough to have all of me right now. Nothing here is more worthy of my focus than you." This is why full presence feels so much like being cared for, because at a deep level, complete attention is a form of care, perhaps the most fundamental form. And divided attention, correspondingly, feels like partial care, a message that other things compete with you for my regard. The person who gives full presence is giving, in the currency of attention, a very pure form of care. Consider a specific scene. You are talking with someone about something that matters to you. In one version, they are half listening, phone in hand, glancing away, offering the occasional distracted response, their attention clearly divided. You feel, subtly, that you and your words do not quite matter enough. In the other version, they put everything else aside, turn fully toward you, and listen with complete attention, entirely present to you and what you are saying, their whole focus on the moment. The difference in how you feel is enormous. In the second version, you feel genuinely received, genuinely valued, genuinely seen. And you walk away with a warm feeling toward the person who gave you that experience, drawn to them, wanting more of the rare gift of their full presence. It is worth acknowledging that full presence is genuinely difficult, especially now. Our attention is under constant assault, fragmented by devices and notifications and the habit of perpetual partial attention. Being fully present requires actually resisting these pulls, actually putting the phone away, actually quieting the mind's tendency to drift and plan and scan, actually choosing to place all of your attention on the person in front of you. This is a discipline, and like any discipline, it requires practice and intention. But it is a discipline richly worth developing, because full presence is not only a gift to others, it is also a richer way to live, a way of actually being in your life rather than perpetually half elsewhere. There is a deeper dimension to presence as well, which is that it is not only about attention but about a quality of being. To be fully present is to be here, now, in this moment, with this person, rather than lost in thought about the past or the future, rather than mentally elsewhere. This kind of presence has a calming, grounding quality that others can feel. The fully present person is not anxious, not rushed, not distracted. They are simply here, and their here-ness creates a sense of stillness and focus that is deeply attractive. There is a peace in being with someone who is completely present, a sense of the moment being enough, of nothing else pulling at them, of being fully met in the now. This quality of grounded presence is one of the most attractive things a person can offer. Presence also transforms the quality of everything else you do in connection. All the listening, the understanding, the eye contact, the warmth, all of it depends on presence, because you cannot truly listen, truly understand, truly see someone if you are not fully there. Presence is the foundation on which the other principles rest. When you are fully present, your listening becomes real listening, your attention becomes real attention, your care becomes palpable. Without presence, even the best intentions become thin and distracted. So in a sense, cultivating full presence is cultivating the ground from which all genuine connection grows. So practice the discipline of full presence. When you are with someone, be with them completely. Phone away, mind quiet, attention undivided, your whole focus on the person and the moment. Resist the constant pull toward distraction and partial attention. Give people the increasingly rare and precious experience of being fully received, of mattering enough to command your complete regard. In doing so, you offer them a form of care that almost nobody offers anymore, and you become someone in whose presence they feel a rare and nourishing sense of being genuinely seen. In a distracted world, the person who can be fully present is the person others cannot help but be drawn to, because presence, in the end, is one of the truest forms of love. Trick 19. Never beg for reassurance. There is a particular behavior that, more than almost any other, erodes attraction and pushes people away, and it is one that comes from a deeply understandable place. It is the constant seeking of reassurance, the repeated need to be told that you are cared for, that you matter, that the other person is not losing interest, that everything is okay between you. This behavior comes from insecurity and anxiety, from a genuine and painful uncertainty about where one stands. And yet, however understandable its source, its effect is almost always the opposite of what the anxious person hopes for. Instead of securing the connection, the constant seeking of reassurance slowly undermines it. Consider what reassurance seeking looks like in practice. It is the repeated "do you still care about me?", the anxious "are we okay?", the frequent fishing for confirmation that you are wanted, the need to be told again and again that the other person's feelings have not changed. Each individual instance seems small and reasonable. After all, who does not want to know they are cared for? But the pattern, repeated, creates a growing pressure and a growing problem. Because each request for reassurance places a burden on the other person, and because the reassurance, once given, never quite satisfies the underlying anxiety, so it must be sought again and again, in a cycle that slowly wears the connection down. The reason this pushes people away is worth understanding clearly. When you constantly seek reassurance, you communicate insecurity, and insecurity is subtly unattractive, not because there is anything shameful about it, but because it signals a neediness that creates pressure and drains warmth. You also place the other person in an exhausting role, the role of perpetual reassurer, endlessly responsible for managing your anxiety, never able to simply enjoy the connection because they are always being asked to prop up your sense of security. Over time, this role becomes depleting. The other person begins to feel less like a partner in something joyful and more like a caretaker of someone's endless uncertainty. And that shift, from partner to caretaker, quietly drains the attraction from the connection. There is also a deeper problem, which is that reassurance seeking often produces the very thing it fears. The anxious person seeks reassurance because they fear the other person is losing interest. But the constant seeking of reassurance, by creating pressure and draining warmth, can actually cause the other person to lose interest, thus confirming the original fear. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The anxiety about losing the connection generates behavior that endangers the connection, which generates more anxiety, which generates more of the endangering behavior. This is one of the cruelest cycles in human relationships, because it turns a fear into its own cause, and the person caught in it often cannot see that their attempts to secure the connection are exactly what is threatening it. Consider a specific example. Someone feels a flicker of insecurity and asks, "Are we okay? Are you still interested?" The other person reassures them, "Of course, everything is fine." For a moment, the anxiety is soothed. But because the reassurance addressed the symptom rather than the underlying insecurity, the anxiety soon returns, and the question is asked again and again. Each time, the reassurance means a little less and the burden weighs a little more. Eventually, the other person begins to feel trapped in a role they did not sign up for, tired of being the endless source of a security that never takes hold. What began as an attempt to feel more secure has made the connection less secure, and the anxious person, sensing the growing distance, feels even more compelled to seek the reassurance that is driving it. The alternative to reassurance seeking is not pretending to feel secure when you do not, nor suppressing all your needs, nor never expressing vulnerability. It is something deeper, actually developing a more secure relationship with yourself, so that your sense of being okay does not depend on constant external confirmation. The person who is genuinely secure within themselves does not need to constantly seek reassurance, because they carry their sense of worth inside rather than requiring it to be continually supplied from outside. This inner security is not only more comfortable to live with, it is also far more attractive, because it removes the pressure and neediness that reassurance seeking creates, and replaces it with a groundedness that others find safe and appealing. This points to the real work, which is internal rather than behavioral. Simply forcing yourself to stop asking for reassurance while remaining deeply insecure inside is only a partial solution, and the anxiety tends to leak out in other ways. The deeper work is to address the insecurity itself, to build a more stable sense of your own worth, to develop enough inner security that you do not need constant external confirmation, to become someone whose okayness rests on a foundation within rather than on the shifting ground of others' reassurances. This is not easy or quick, but it is the genuine solution, and it transforms not only your relationships but your entire experience of yourself. It is worth distinguishing healthy expression of needs from anxious reassurance seeking, because they can look similar but are quite different. It is entirely healthy, in a close relationship, to sometimes express vulnerability, to share your feelings, even to occasionally seek connection and closeness. What is corrosive is not the occasional genuine expression of need, but the compulsive, repeated, anxiety-driven seeking of reassurance that comes from deep insecurity and places a constant burden on the other person. The difference is in the frequency, the compulsiveness, and the underlying state. A secure person expressing a genuine need is very different from an insecure person anxiously fishing, again and again, for a confirmation that never satisfies. Consider the freedom that comes from releasing this pattern. When you no longer need constant reassurance, you can actually enjoy the connection rather than perpetually monitoring it for signs of danger. You can be present rather than anxious, giving rather than needing, secure rather than perpetually seeking. This freedom is a gift to yourself and to the other person, who is released from the exhausting role of endless reassurer and can simply be your partner in something good. The connection becomes lighter, warmer, more joyful, because it is no longer weighed down by the constant demand for confirmation. And paradoxically, in this lighter and more secure space, the closeness you are anxiously seeking through reassurance actually grows. So work toward the inner security that makes reassurance seeking unnecessary. Notice the anxious pull to seek confirmation, and rather than obeying it or merely suppressing it, address the insecurity underneath. Build a sense of your own worth that does not depend on constant external supply. Trust, as much as you can, that you are okay, that you are worth caring for, that you do not need to be told so again and again. In doing so, you free yourself from a painful cycle and free your connections from a corrosive burden, and you become the kind of grounded, secure person whose steadiness is not a performance but a genuine inner state. The kind of person others feel safe with, precisely because they are not being asked to endlessly prop up someone else's sense of worth. Trick 20. Make your attention feel valuable. Attention is a currency, perhaps the most fundamental currency in all of human relationship, and like any currency, its value depends partly on how it is given. The person who gives their attention to everyone equally, freely, indiscriminately, without any sense of discrimination or selectivity, finds that their attention comes to mean very little, because it is available to all and therefore special to none. The person whose attention is selective, who does not give it to everyone equally, whose full regard must be earned and is not simply dispensed to all comers, finds that their attention becomes valuable, precisely because it is not unlimited. To receive it means something, because not everyone does. Consider first the person who gives attention indiscriminately. They are attentive to everyone, equally warm to all, dispensing their full regard to anyone and everyone without distinction. There is a kind of generosity in this, and it is not a bad way to be. But it has a hidden cost in the realm of attraction and value. When your attention is given to everyone equally, receiving it means little, because it carries no signal of special regard. The person you are attentive to cannot feel chosen, because they see you are equally attentive to everyone. Your attention, however warm, becomes generic, a thing you give to all rather than a thing that marks someone as special. And generic attention, however pleasant, does not create the feeling of being specially valued that draws people close. Now consider the person whose attention is selective. They are warm and decent to everyone, but their full, focused, genuine regard is not dispensed indiscriminately. It is given more fully to those they genuinely find worthy of it. When such a person turns their full attention on you, it means something, because you can sense that not everyone receives this, that you have been selected for a fuller regard than the person gives to most. This selectivity makes the attention valuable. To receive the full focus of someone who does not give it to everyone is to feel genuinely chosen, specially regarded, singled out. And that feeling of being selected for someone's fuller attention is deeply attractive, far more so than being one recipient among many of a regard given to all. The psychology here is the familiar logic of scarcity and value, applied to attention. Things that are unlimited and given to all tend to be valued less than things that are selective and given to few. This is true of attention as much as anything else. When your attention is unlimited, dispensed to everyone equally, it is abundant and therefore, sadly, cheap. When your attention is selective, given more fully to some than to others, it becomes scarce and therefore precious. The person who receives your selective full regard feels the value of it precisely because they sense it is not given to everyone. Your attention becomes a meaningful gift rather than a generic dispensation, and meaningful gifts create far more connection than generic ones. Consider a specific illustration. Imagine a person at a social gathering who is equally, indiscriminately attentive to everyone, turning the same full warmth and focus on every single person without distinction. It is pleasant, but no one feels special, because everyone is receiving the same thing. Now imagine a person who is polite and warm to all, but whose full, focused, genuine attention clearly is not given to everyone, who, when they turn that fuller regard on you, makes you feel that you have been selected, that this is not what they give to just anyone. The second person's attention feels far more valuable, and being chosen for it feels far more meaningful. The selectivity is what gives the attention its worth. It is important to understand what this does and does not mean, because it can easily be misread as coldness or snobbery. Making your attention valuable does not mean being cold, dismissive, or unkind to most people while lavishing attention on a select few. Basic warmth, decency, and respect should be extended to everyone. That is simply how to be a good person. The selectivity is about your fuller, deeper, more focused regard, the real depth of your attention and interest, as opposed to basic courtesy. You can be kind and warm to everyone while still reserving your deepest attention and interest for those who genuinely earn it. The point is not to be stingy with basic decency, but to not dispense your deepest regard indiscriminately, so that when you do give it, it carries the weight of genuine selection. There is also a matter of authenticity here that connects to self-respect. The person who gives their full attention to everyone equally, indiscriminately, often does so out of a kind of insecurity, a need to be liked by all, an inability to discriminate, a fear of withholding regard from anyone lest they be disapproved of. The person whose attention is selective is exercising a kind of discernment, a self-respect that says, my full attention is worth something, and I give it to those who genuinely merit it rather than dispensing it to all comers to win universal approval. This discernment is itself attractive, because it signals a person who values themselves and their own regard, rather than anxiously giving themselves away to everyone in the hope of being liked. This connects to a broader truth about value and self-worth. When you treat your own attention, time, and regard as valuable, as things worth giving thoughtfully rather than dispensing indiscriminately, you communicate that you value yourself, and others tend to value you accordingly. When you give yourself away to everyone, indiscriminately, you communicate, without meaning to, that your regard is cheap and abundant, and others may unconsciously value it less. The way you treat your own attention teaches others how to value it. Treat it as precious and selective, and it becomes precious. Treat it as unlimited and indiscriminate, and it becomes ordinary. Your own valuation of your regard shapes how others receive it. Consider what it means to receive selective attention from someone you are drawn to. When a person whose full regard is clearly not given to everyone chooses to give it to you, the effect is powerful. You feel genuinely selected, specially valued, chosen for something not everyone receives. This is the feeling of being preferred, singled out, regarded as worthy of a person's deeper attention. And this feeling is one of the most attractive experiences in human connection, because it answers the deep longing to be specially wanted rather than generically included. The selective attention creates the feeling of being chosen, and the feeling of being chosen creates deep warmth and attachment. So learn to treat your attention as the valuable currency it is. Be warm and decent to everyone, but reserve your fuller, deeper, more focused regard for those who genuinely earn it, so that when you give it, it carries the weight of real selection. Do not dispense your deepest attention indiscriminately in an anxious bid for universal approval. Exercise the discernment of someone who knows their regard is worth something. In doing so, you make your attention meaningful, you make those you choose feel genuinely chosen, and you communicate a self-respect that is itself deeply attractive. In the end, attention given to everyone equally is attention that means little, while attention given selectively, from a place of genuine regard and discernment, becomes one of the most precious gifts one person can give another. Trick 21. Become emotionally self-sufficient. At the very foundation of genuine, healthy attraction lies a quality that is often misunderstood and rarely discussed directly: emotional self-sufficiency. This is the capacity to meet your own emotional needs, to be okay on your own, to have a sense of wholeness and stability that does not depend on any other person. It does not mean not needing anyone, not caring about anyone, or being cold and detached. It means having a stable center within yourself, a source of okayness that is yours, so that you come to others from a place of fullness rather than desperate need. And this quality, paradoxically, is one of the most attractive things a person can possess, because people are drawn to those who want them but do not desperately need them. Consider first the person who is not emotionally self-sufficient, who depends on others to feel okay. Their sense of well-being rises and falls with how others treat them. They need constant connection, constant validation, constant reassurance to feel stable. When alone, they feel incomplete, anxious, adrift. They come to relationships from a place of need, looking for someone to fill the emptiness, to provide the okayness they cannot generate themselves. And while this is deeply human and understandable, it creates a heavy dynamic. The other person becomes responsible for the needy person's emotional well-being, which is an exhausting burden, and the neediness itself, the desperation underneath it, subtly pushes people away rather than drawing them close. Now consider the emotionally self-sufficient person. They have a stable sense of well-being that comes from within, that does not depend on any particular relationship. They can be alone without feeling incomplete. They generate their own okayness, meet many of their own emotional needs, stand on their own foundation. And so when they come to a relationship, they come not from desperate need but from genuine desire. They want the other person, enjoy them, choose them, but do not desperately need them to feel okay. This is an entirely different energy, and it is enormously attractive. There is no desperation in it, no heavy dependence, no burden placed on the other person to be the source of one's well-being. There is simply genuine wanting, offered from a place of fullness. And genuine wanting offered from fullness is one of the most appealing things a person can bring to a connection. The psychology of why self-sufficiency attracts and neediness repels comes down to the difference between wanting and needing. When someone needs you to feel okay, their regard for you is entangled with their own desperation, and you can feel the weight of being responsible for their well-being. It creates pressure, and pressure is unattractive. When someone wants you but does not need you, their regard is a free choice rather than a desperate necessity, an offering rather than a demand. Being wanted by someone who does not need you is far more flattering than being needed by someone who is desperate, because the first says you are chosen freely, out of genuine desire, while the second says you are required to fill an emptiness. We are drawn to being freely chosen and subtly repelled by being desperately needed. Consider a specific contrast. Two people enter a new relationship. The first is emotionally dependent. They need the relationship to feel okay. They look to the other person to provide their sense of well-being. They become anxious and destabilized whenever the connection feels uncertain. Their neediness, however understandable, creates a heaviness, a pressure, a sense of being leaned on too hard. The second person is emotionally self-sufficient. They genuinely want and enjoy the relationship, but they do not need it to feel okay. They have their own stable foundation. They can weather uncertainty without falling apart. Their energy is light, secure, genuinely desiring without being desperate. In nearly every case, the second person's energy is far more attractive, because it offers connection without the burden of dependence, wanting without the weight of need. It is essential to be clear about what emotional self-sufficiency is not. It is not emotional coldness, detachment, or the refusal to need anyone at all. Human beings are social creatures. We are meant to connect, to depend on one another in healthy ways, to need each other to some degree. Self-sufficiency taken to the extreme, into a refusal to ever depend on anyone or to let anyone matter, becomes its own kind of pathology, a walled-off isolation that prevents real intimacy. The healthy version is not the absence of all need, but the presence of a stable center, the capacity to be okay on your own, combined with the willingness to genuinely connect and to let others matter. It is interdependence rather than either desperate dependence or cold independence. Two whole people choosing to share their lives, rather than two half people clinging to each other to feel complete. This points to the real work of becoming emotionally self-sufficient, which is the work of building a stable relationship with yourself and a full life of your own. It means developing sources of well-being that are yours, your own interests, passions, friendships, meaning, and self-worth, so that you are not dependent on any single relationship to feel okay. It means learning to be comfortable with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to generate your own okayness rather than requiring it to be supplied from outside. This is deep and lifelong work, but it is among the most valuable work a person can do, because it transforms not only your relationships but your entire experience of life. The person who is whole on their own brings that wholeness to everything they touch. There is a beautiful paradox at the heart of this. The more emotionally self-sufficient you become, the less you need any particular relationship, and yet the better your relationships become. This is because you come to them from fullness rather than need, offering genuine desire rather than desperate dependence, choosing the other person freely rather than clinging to them out of emptiness. Relationships built on two whole people choosing each other are far healthier and more attractive than relationships built on need and dependence. So the very self-sufficiency that reduces your desperate need for relationships is exactly what makes your relationships flourish. By needing less, you love better, and by depending less desperately, you connect more deeply. Consider also the security this brings to a relationship for both people. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, you do not place the crushing burden of your entire well-being on your partner. You do not require them to be your sole source of okayness, your constant reassurer, your emotional caretaker. This frees them to simply be your partner, to enjoy the connection without the weight of total responsibility for your emotional state. And it frees you from the terror of dependence, the desperate fear of losing the one thing that makes you okay. Both people can breathe, because neither is desperately clinging to the other. This spaciousness, this lightness, this freedom from desperate dependence, is one of the healthiest and most attractive foundations a relationship can have. Trick 22. Mirror energy carefully and subtly. Beneath the surface of every human interaction runs a subtle current of matching and attunement, a largely unconscious dance in which people adjust to one another's energy, rhythm, and mood. When two people are truly connecting, you can often see it. They begin to mirror each other, adopting similar postures, matching each other's pace, falling into a shared rhythm. This mirroring is one of the deep signatures of rapport and connection, and understanding it, using it gently and genuinely, can significantly deepen your ability to connect with others. But it must be done with care and subtlety, because mirroring that becomes obvious or mechanical destroys the very connection it aims to build. Consider first what natural mirroring is. When people are in genuine rapport, they unconsciously begin to match one another. Similar body language, similar energy levels, similar speech patterns and pace. Two friends deep in conversation lean in at the same angle. Two people who are clicking match each other's enthusiasm or calm. This mirroring is not usually deliberate. It happens naturally as an expression of connection, a physical manifestation of two people falling into sync. It both reflects rapport and deepens it, creating a felt sense of being on the same wavelength, of understanding and being understood at a level below words. The mirroring and the connection reinforce each other in a natural, mutual loop. Now, understanding this, you can use gentle mirroring intentionally to help build rapport and connection. If someone is speaking calmly and softly, meeting them with a similar calm rather than jarring, loud energy helps them feel comfortable and understood. If someone is enthusiastic and animated, matching some of that energy rather than responding with flat coolness helps you connect with their mood. By attuning your energy to theirs, gently and genuinely, you create the felt sense of being in sync, of being on the same wavelength, which deepens the feeling of connection. This is not manipulation. It is a kind of empathy in action, a willingness to meet people where they are emotionally and energetically rather than forcing them to meet you. The psychology behind why mirroring works is deep and well studied. Human beings feel more comfortable, more understood, and more connected with those who are similar to them, and mirroring creates a felt sense of similarity. When someone matches our energy and rhythm, some part of us registers them as being like us, on our wavelength, attuned to us, and this registers as comfort and connection. There is also a bodily dimension. Matching someone's physical and energetic state helps synchronize your nervous systems, creating a shared physiological state that underlies the feeling of being in sync. Mirroring, done well, is a way of meeting another person not just in words but in body and energy, and that fuller meeting creates a deeper sense of connection. But here is the crucial caution, and it cannot be overstated. Mirroring must be subtle and genuine, never obvious or mechanical. If your mirroring becomes noticeable, if the other person consciously realizes you are copying their posture, mimicking their gestures, deliberately matching them, it backfires completely. It feels manipulative, fake, even creepy, and it destroys rapport rather than building it. The whole power of mirroring lies in its subtlety, in its operating below the level of conscious awareness. The moment it becomes conscious and obvious, it becomes a technique being performed on someone, and people recoil from being subjected to techniques. So mirroring must always be gentle, natural, and subtle, an attunement rather than an imitation. Consider the difference between subtle attunement and obvious mimicry. Subtle attunement is matching the general energy and mood of an interaction, meeting calm with calm, warmth with warmth, meeting someone where they are emotionally, in a way that feels natural and empathic. Obvious mimicry is deliberately copying specific gestures and postures, mechanically mirroring movements, in a way that the other person can consciously notice. The first builds connection, the second destroys it. The line between them is the line between genuine empathic attunement and calculated technical imitation, and it is a line you must never cross if you want mirroring to work. Stay on the side of genuine, subtle attunement, and never tip over into obvious, mechanical copying. This is why the healthiest form of mirroring is not really a technique at all, but a natural expression of genuine empathy and attunement. When you actually care about connecting with someone, when you are genuinely present and attuned to their emotional state, mirroring tends to happen naturally, without calculation. You meet their calm with calm because you genuinely attune to it, match their enthusiasm because you genuinely share in it, fall into their rhythm because you are genuinely in sync with them. This natural mirroring, arising from genuine empathy and presence, is far more powerful and far safer than any deliberate technique, because it is real, and its reality is exactly what makes it work. There is also wisdom in knowing when not to mirror, or when to gently shift the energy rather than match it. If someone is anxious and agitated, matching their anxiety would only amplify it. Instead, you might meet them with a grounded calm that gently invites them towards steadiness. If someone is spiraling into negativity, mirroring it would deepen the spiral. Instead, you might offer a warmer, more grounded energy that gently shifts the tone. So mirroring is not a rigid rule of always matching. It is part of a larger skill of emotional attunement, of sensing another person's state and responding to it wisely, sometimes by matching, sometimes by offering a different energy that serves the person better. The deeper skill is attunement itself, of which mirroring is one expression. Consider how this fits with the broader theme of genuine connection. Mirroring, at its best, is a form of the deep attunement that makes people feel understood, the physical and energetic version of the emotional understanding discussed earlier. It is a way of meeting people fully, in body and energy as well as in words, of being genuinely on their wavelength. And like all these principles, it works best when it flows from genuine care and presence rather than from calculation. The person who is truly present and attuned mirrors naturally, connects deeply, and makes others feel met at every level. The person who deploys mirroring as a calculated technique risks the mechanical obviousness that destroys connection. So develop the deeper skill of genuine attunement, of which subtle mirroring is a natural expression. Meet people where they are emotionally and energetically, calm with calm, warmth with warmth, matching the genuine energy of an interaction in a way that is subtle and natural. Let this arise from actual presence and empathy rather than from calculated technique, and never let it tip over into obvious, mechanical mimicry that would feel manipulative and destroy the connection. Know, too, when to offer a different, grounding energy rather than matching a difficult one. In doing so, you deepen your ability to connect with others at a level below words, creating the felt sense of being genuinely in sync, a sense that, when it is real, is one of the surest foundations of rapport and connection. Trick 23. Make people feel emotionally safe. Of all the qualities that draw people close and create deep, lasting attachment, none is more foundational than emotional safety. It is the ground on which everything else is built. Emotional safety is the felt sense that you can be yourself around someone, that you can be vulnerable, imperfect, honest, real, without fear of judgment, ridicule, rejection, or attack. It is the sense that this person is safe to open up to, safe to be seen by, safe to trust with your true self. And the person who can create this feeling of emotional safety in others touches something very deep, because the longing to be safely, fully seen and accepted is one of the most fundamental human longings there is. Consider how rare emotional safety actually is. Most people move through the world with their guard at least partly up, carefully managing how they are seen, hiding their insecurities and imperfections, afraid that if their true selves were fully known they would be judged or rejected. This guardedness is exhausting and lonely, a constant low-level performance that keeps people from ever fully relaxing into being themselves. And it persists because genuine emotional safety is so rare, because so few people offer the kind of accepting, non-judgmental presence that would make it safe to lower the guard. So when someone does offer that safety, when someone makes it feel truly okay to be vulnerable and real, the effect is profound. It is like finally being able to exhale after holding one's breath for a very long time. What creates emotional safety? At its core, it is non-judgmental acceptance, the sense that you can reveal your true self, including your flaws and struggles and insecurities, and be met with warmth and understanding rather than judgment or rejection. It is created by how you respond when people are vulnerable with you. When someone shares something difficult or tender, do you meet it with warmth, understanding, and acceptance, or with judgment, criticism, or dismissal? When someone reveals an imperfection or a struggle, do you make them feel more accepted or less? The person who consistently responds to others' vulnerability with warmth and acceptance becomes a safe harbor, a person around whom others can finally be real. And that safety creates a bond deeper than almost anything else. The psychology of emotional safety connects to our deepest needs for acceptance and belonging. Human beings have a profound need to be accepted, to belong, to be loved for who they truly are rather than for a performed and managed version of themselves. But this need is usually only partly met, because most of us hide our true selves out of fear of rejection, and so we are accepted only for the version we present, never fully for who we really are. Emotional safety allows this deepest need to be met. When someone makes it safe to be fully real and accepts us in that realness, we experience the profound relief and joy of being loved for who we actually are. This is one of the most healing and bonding experiences a person can have, and we become deeply attached to those who provide it. Consider a specific example. Someone shares with you a vulnerability, an insecurity, a fear, a mistake, a struggle they are ashamed of. This is a moment of great significance, a test of emotional safety. If you respond with judgment, criticism, discomfort, or dismissal, you teach them that you are not safe, that their vulnerability was a mistake, and they will close back up, guard raised even higher than before. But if you respond with warmth, acceptance, understanding, and perhaps your own gentle vulnerability in return, you teach them that you are safe, that their true self is welcome with you, that they can be real around you without fear. This single response can deepen a connection enormously, because it proves, in the moment that matters most, that you are a safe place for their true self. Creating emotional safety requires certain qualities in yourself. It requires being non-judgmental, able to accept people's flaws and struggles without condemnation. It requires being trustworthy, someone who does not betray confidences or use vulnerabilities against people. It requires warmth, the genuine care that makes acceptance felt rather than merely stated. And it requires a certain security in yourself, because it is often our own insecurities that make us judgmental of others. We condemn in others what we fear in ourselves. The person who has made peace with their own imperfections is far more able to accept the imperfections of others. And so the inner work of self-acceptance is also the work of becoming able to offer emotional safety to others. It is worth noting that emotional safety is not the same as having no standards or accepting genuinely harmful behavior. Making people feel safe to be vulnerable and real is different from having no boundaries or approving of everything. You can create emotional safety, accepting people's flaws, struggles, and true selves with warmth, while still having your own standards and boundaries. In fact, healthy emotional safety includes the security of knowing where someone stands, that they are honest and have integrity. The point is not to be endlessly permissive, but to be non-judgmental about the vulnerable, human, imperfect reality of who people are, so that they can be real with you without fear of rejection for their ordinary human flaws and struggles. Consider what a gift emotional safety is in a world so short of it. To be a person around whom others can finally lower their guard, be themselves, be vulnerable and real and imperfect without fear, this is to offer something precious and rare. People are starving for it, carrying the loneliness of never being fully seen, exhausted by the constant performance of managing how they are perceived. The person who offers genuine emotional safety offers relief from all of that, a place to finally be real. And this is why emotional safety creates such deep attachment. We become bonded to those with whom we can be our true selves, because they give us something almost no one else does: acceptance of who we actually are. Emotional safety is also the foundation that makes all deeper intimacy possible. Without it, people keep their guard up, stay on the surface, never fully open. With it, people can go deep, reveal their true selves, build the kind of profound intimacy that comes only from being fully known and fully accepted. So creating emotional safety is not just one nice quality among many. It is the ground on which real intimacy is built. Every deep connection rests on the felt sense that it is safe to be real, and the person who can create that sense becomes capable of connections far deeper than those who cannot. In this sense, emotional safety is not just attractive, it is the very foundation of love. So become a person who creates emotional safety. Respond to others' vulnerability with warmth and acceptance rather than judgment. Be trustworthy with what people share. Do the inner work of self-acceptance that makes you able to accept others. Make it safe, around you, for people to be real, imperfect, vulnerable, and human, without fear of rejection. In doing so, you offer one of the rarest and most precious gifts in human life, the experience of being fully seen and fully accepted, and you become a safe harbor to which people, longing to finally exhale and be themselves, will return again and again, and to which they will become deeply, gratefully attached. Trick 24. Reveal vulnerability selectively. Vulnerability is one of the great paradoxes of human connection. It is simultaneously essential and dangerous, the doorway to deep intimacy and, if mishandled, the destroyer of attraction. Handled wisely, the selective revelation of vulnerability creates profound closeness, allowing others to truly know you and forging bonds of genuine intimacy. Handled poorly, through oversharing, through vulnerability that comes too much or too soon or too heavily, it overwhelms, burdens, and pushes people away. The art lies in revealing vulnerability selectively, at the right times, to the right people, in the right measure, so that it opens the door to intimacy without collapsing under its own weight. Consider first why vulnerability is essential. Real intimacy requires being truly known, and being truly known requires revealing your true self, including the vulnerable parts, your fears, your struggles, your tender places, your imperfections. Without vulnerability, connection stays on the surface, safe but shallow, because you are only ever showing the managed, guarded version of yourself. The willingness to be vulnerable, to let someone see beneath the guard, is what allows connection to deepen into genuine intimacy. It says, "I trust you enough to let you see the real me," and that trust, that opening, is one of the deepest forms of closeness. Vulnerability shared and met with acceptance creates a bond that guarded connection never can. But consider also why vulnerability is dangerous, why it must be selective rather than indiscriminate. Vulnerability revealed too much, too soon, or too heavily can overwhelm and burden others and can actually push them away. The person who shares their deepest wounds and struggles immediately, before trust and connection have been established, tends to overwhelm rather than connect, creating a sense of too much weight too fast. The person who is constantly, heavily vulnerable, always sharing their pain and struggles, can become a burden, making the connection feel heavy and draining. And vulnerability shared with people who have not earned it, who are not safe, can lead to being hurt, judged, or rejected. So vulnerability, though essential, must be handled with wisdom, revealed selectively rather than indiscriminately poured out. The key word is selectively, at the right times, to the right people, in the right measure. Consider timing first. Vulnerability tends to deepen connection most when it comes at a point where some trust and connection have already been established, where the relationship is ready to hold it. Revealed too early, before that foundation exists, it tends to overwhelm. Revealed at the right moment, as a connection is deepening, it takes the connection to a new level of intimacy. There is a natural rhythm to the deepening of closeness, and vulnerability offered in tune with that rhythm, neither rushing ahead of it nor lagging behind it, is vulnerability that builds intimacy rather than burdening or stalling it. Consider next the matter of measure. Vulnerability works best in measured doses rather than overwhelming floods. A moment of genuine vulnerability, a real but not overwhelming revelation of something tender or true, can deepen connection beautifully. A flood of vulnerability, an overwhelming outpouring of all one's deepest pain and struggles at once, tends to overwhelm and burden. So there is wisdom in revealing vulnerability in measured amounts, letting a connection deepen gradually through a series of appropriately sized revelations rather than trying to force deep intimacy through one overwhelming outpouring. The measured approach respects both the connection's capacity to hold vulnerability and the other person's capacity to receive it. Consider also the matter of who, to the right people. Not everyone has earned your vulnerability, and not everyone is safe to be vulnerable with. Part of the wisdom of selective vulnerability is discernment about who to open up to, reserving your deeper vulnerabilities for those who have shown themselves to be safe, trustworthy, and worthy of that trust, rather than indiscriminately revealing your tender places to anyone. This discernment protects you from being hurt by those who are not safe, and it also makes your vulnerability meaningful, because it is given selectively, as a gift of trust, rather than dispensed to all comers. The vulnerability you share with someone who has earned it carries a weight and a meaning that indiscriminate oversharing never could. There is a specific and beautiful power in vulnerability shared at the right moment, which is worth dwelling on. When, at a point where trust has been established, you reveal something genuinely vulnerable, a real fear, a tender truth, a struggle you do not show to everyone, and it is met with acceptance and warmth, something profound happens. The connection deepens to a new level. You have shown the other person that you trust them with your real self, and their acceptance of that self bonds you together. Moreover, your vulnerability often invites theirs, creating a mutual deepening, a shared opening that takes the relationship into genuine intimacy. These moments of well-timed, well-received mutual vulnerability are often the moments when connections transform from pleasant to deep, from surface to real. It is worth distinguishing selective vulnerability from two opposite failures. On one side is the failure of never being vulnerable at all, staying guarded, never revealing the real self, keeping all connections safe but shallow. This prevents intimacy from ever deepening. On the other side is the failure of indiscriminate oversharing, revealing too much too soon to anyone, flooding others with vulnerability, using vulnerability in ways that overwhelm and burden. This also prevents healthy intimacy, in a different way. Selective vulnerability threads between these failures, neither withholding vulnerability entirely nor pouring it out indiscriminately, but revealing it wisely, at the right times, to the right people, in the right measure. This wise middle path is what allows vulnerability to do its beautiful work of deepening connection without collapsing under its own weight. Consider how this connects to emotional safety, discussed earlier. Selective vulnerability and emotional safety work together. You reveal vulnerability selectively to those who have shown themselves safe, and in doing so you also invite them to be vulnerable with you, offering them the emotional safety to do so. This mutual, selective, well-timed exchange of vulnerability, each opening met with acceptance, is the very engine of deepening intimacy. It is how two people gradually come to truly know and accept each other, layer by layer, revelation by revelation, each act of trust met with warmth, until they have built the kind of deep intimacy that comes only from being fully known and fully accepted. Vulnerability is the currency of this deepening, and selectivity is the wisdom that lets it be spent well. So handle your vulnerability with wisdom. Do not withhold it entirely, for that keeps connection shallow. But do not pour it out indiscriminately either, for that overwhelms and burdens and exposes you to those who are not safe. Instead, reveal it selectively, at the right times, when trust has been established and the connection is ready. To the right people, those who have shown themselves safe and worthy, and in the right measure, in doses the connection can hold rather than overwhelming floods. In doing so, you allow vulnerability to work its deep magic, opening the door to genuine intimacy, forging the bonds that come only from being truly known, while protecting both yourself and the connection from the collapse that indiscriminate vulnerability would bring. Trick 25. Keep your standards visible through actions. There is a quiet but powerful force in human attraction that comes not from what you say about yourself, but from the standards you demonstrate through how you live and act. Standards, your sense of what you will and will not accept, how you expect to be treated, what you value and require in your life and relationships. Communicate your self-worth more clearly than any words could. And crucially, they communicate it most powerfully not when they are announced, but when they are visible through actions, lived rather than declared. The person whose high standards are evident in how they actually live commands a natural respect and attraction that no amount of talk could produce. Consider what standards actually are. They are the boundaries and expectations that reflect how you value yourself, the way you expect to be treated, the behavior you will and will not accept, the quality of connection and respect you require. A person with high standards does not accept poor treatment, does not tolerate disrespect, does not settle for less than they know they deserve. A person with low or absent standards accepts whatever they are given, tolerates poor treatment, settles for less out of fear that they cannot do better. And these standards, whether high or low, communicate a message about self-worth. High standards say I value myself and expect to be treated accordingly, while low standards say, "I do not believe I deserve better than this." Now, the key insight is that standards are most powerful when demonstrated through actions rather than announced through words. Anyone can claim to have high standards, can talk about how they expect to be treated, can declare their self-worth. But talk is cheap and easily seen through. What actually communicates standards is behavior, how you actually respond when treated poorly, what you actually accept and refuse, how you actually live out your values. When your high standards are visible in your actions, they carry a weight and a credibility that announced standards never could. People believe what you demonstrate far more than what you declare, and demonstrated standards command a respect that declared ones do not. Consider a specific example. Someone treats you with disrespect or poor behavior. The person with low standards, whatever they might claim, accepts it, makes excuses for it, tolerates it out of fear of losing the connection. This demonstrates, through action, a low sense of self-worth, and it tends to invite more of the same poor treatment while diminishing attraction. The person with high standards responds differently, not with drama or anger, but with a calm, clear unwillingness to accept the poor treatment, perhaps a quiet stepping back, a demonstrated refusal to tolerate what does not meet their standards. This action, this lived boundary, communicates powerful self-worth, and it tends to command respect and increase attraction, because it shows a person who genuinely values themselves. The psychology here connects to how we assess others' value partly through how they value themselves. When someone demonstrates, through their standards and boundaries, that they value themselves highly, we tend to value them highly too, taking our cue partly from their own self-assessment. When someone demonstrates, through accepting poor treatment, that they do not value themselves much, we may unconsciously value them less as well. This is not entirely fair, but it is how human social assessment often works. We are influenced by how people treat themselves and what they demonstrate they will accept. High standards, visibly lived, signal high self-worth, and high self-worth, so signaled, tends to command respect and attraction. It is essential to distinguish healthy high standards from their unhealthy imitations. High standards are not arrogance, harshness, or an impossible demandingness that no one could ever meet. They are not about being cold, critical, or superior. Healthy high standards come from genuine self-respect, and they are usually held with warmth rather than harshness. A person can have clear standards and boundaries while still being kind, warm, and accepting of others' humanity. The distinction is between valuing yourself enough to not accept poor treatment, which is healthy and attractive, and being harshly demanding or superior, which is neither. Healthy standards are firm but warm, clear but not cruel, rooted in self-respect rather than in contempt for others. There is also a crucial distinction between demonstrating standards and announcing them, which bears repeating because it is so often gotten wrong. The person who constantly talks about their high standards, who announces how much they value themselves, who declares what they will and will not accept, often comes across as insecure or arrogant, because the announcing itself suggests a need to convince. The person who simply lives their standards, quietly and without fanfare, demonstrating them through calm action when the situation calls for it, communicates far more powerfully. Let your standards show through how you actually live and respond, not through declarations. Demonstrated standards are believed and respected. Announced standards are doubted and can even repel. Consider how this plays out over the course of a connection. Early on and throughout, the standards you demonstrate teach others how to treat you. When you demonstrate, through action, that you will not accept poor treatment, that you value yourself, that you require genuine respect and care, you teach others to meet those standards, and you attract those capable of doing so while filtering out those who are not. When you demonstrate low or absent standards, accepting whatever you are given, you teach others that poor treatment is acceptable, and you tend to attract more of it. In this sense, your standards, lived through action, actively shape the treatment you receive and the kind of connections you build. You are always teaching others how to treat you, and you teach most powerfully through what you demonstrate you will accept. This connects deeply to the theme of self-worth that runs through so many of these principles. High standards, genuinely held and visibly lived, are ultimately an expression of self-worth, of genuinely valuing yourself enough to not accept less than you deserve. And this self-worth is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have, precisely because it cannot be faked. It shows in how you actually carry yourself, what you actually accept, how you actually respond. The deep work, then, is not to perform high standards but to genuinely develop the self-worth from which they naturally flow. When you truly value yourself, high standards follow naturally, and they show through your actions without any need for announcement. So let your standards be visible through how you live and act. Value yourself enough to not accept poor treatment, disrespect, or less than you deserve. Not with drama or harshness, but with calm, warm, clear action when the situation calls for it. Do not announce your standards, demonstrate them, and let the demonstration command the respect that declarations never could. Hold your standards with warmth rather than superiority, rooted in genuine self-respect rather than contempt. And do the deeper work of developing the self-worth from which healthy standards naturally flow. In doing so, you teach others how to treat you, you attract those capable of meeting you well, and you carry the quiet, unfakeable attraction of a person who genuinely knows their own worth. Trick 26. Never chase people who play distance games. There is a painful and common trap in the world of attraction, and learning to recognize and refuse it is essential for both your well-being and, paradoxically, your attractiveness. It is the trap of chasing people who play distance games, those who withdraw, go cold, become unavailable, or create distance specifically to see whether you will chase them, to test their power over you, or to keep you anxiously pursuing. The instinct, when someone we are drawn to pulls away, is to chase, to pursue, to try harder to win them back. But chasing people who play distance games is almost always a mistake, one that diminishes you, rewards manipulation, and traps you in an unhealthy dynamic. Consider first what a distance game is. It is when someone deliberately or semi-deliberately creates distance, withdrawing affection, going cold, becoming unavailable, pulling back, not out of genuine need for space or genuine change of feeling, but as a move in a dynamic of power and pursuit. The distance is designed, consciously or not, to provoke chasing, to test whether you will pursue, to keep you anxious and off balance, to confirm their power over you. It is a game in the sense that it is a move made to produce a reaction rather than an honest expression of a genuine state. And the reaction it is designed to produce is your pursuit, your chasing, your anxious effort to close the distance they created. Now consider what happens when you chase in response to a distance game. You reward the game. You confirm that the withdrawal works, that creating distance produces your pursuit, that the person has power over you through their coldness. This teaches them to keep playing the game, because it works, and it traps you in a dynamic where you are perpetually anxious, perpetually pursuing, perpetually at the mercy of their withdrawals. You also diminish yourself, communicating through your chasing that you will pursue even those who treat you with manipulative coldness, that your regard can be commanded through games, that you do not value yourself enough to refuse the manipulation. Chasing distance games rewards manipulation, traps you in anxiety, and lowers your value. Consider instead what happens when you refuse to chase. When someone plays a distance game and you do not pursue, do not chase, do not reward the withdrawal with anxious effort, you break the dynamic. You demonstrate that their coldness does not command your pursuit, that games do not work on you, that you value yourself too much to chase someone who treats you with manipulative distance. This is powerful in several ways. It protects your dignity and well-being, freeing you from the anxious pursuit that distance games are designed to provoke. It refuses to reward the manipulation, removing the payoff that keeps the game going. And, remarkably, it often shifts the dynamic in your favor, because the person playing the game, finding that their withdrawal does not produce your pursuit, may be drawn toward you by the very fact that you did not chase. The psychology here is subtle and worth understanding. Distance games work by exploiting the chasing instinct, the tendency to pursue what withdraws, to want more what we might lose, to chase what pulls away. When you chase, you feed this dynamic and confirm the game's power. When you refuse to chase, you deny the game its fuel, and you also demonstrate a self-worth and security that is genuinely attractive. The person who does not chase communicates that they do not need the other person desperately, that they will not be manipulated through withdrawal, that they value themselves enough to walk away from games. This security and self-respect is far more attractive than anxious pursuit, and it often draws the game player toward the person who refused to play. It is important to distinguish distance games from genuine needs for space, because they can look similar but are entirely different, and confusing them causes harm. Sometimes people genuinely need space, genuinely need time, genuinely have real reasons for temporary distance that have nothing to do with games or manipulation. Respecting someone's genuine need for space is healthy and good, and it is completely different from refusing to chase a manipulative distance game. The distinction lies in the nature and spirit of the distance. Is it an honest expression of a genuine need, communicated openly, or is it a manipulative move designed to provoke pursuit and test power? Genuine needs for space deserve respect and patience. Manipulative distance games deserve a refusal to chase. Learning to tell the difference is part of the wisdom here. Consider also what your response to distance games reveals about your relationship with yourself. The person who chases distance games, who anxiously pursues those who withdraw manipulatively, is often operating from insecurity and a lack of self-worth, a fear of loss so strong that they will pursue even those who treat them with manipulative coldness. The person who refuses to chase is operating from security and self-respect, a sense of their own worth strong enough that they will not chase manipulation, will not reward games, will not sacrifice their dignity to pursue someone who plays with their feelings. So the deeper work here, once again, is the work of self-worth. When you genuinely value yourself, refusing to chase distance games becomes natural, because you simply will not sacrifice your dignity for someone who treats you that way. There is also a filtering function in refusing to chase, which serves you well over the long run. People who play distance games, who rely on manipulation and withdrawal to create attraction, are generally not people with whom healthy, secure relationships can be built. By refusing to chase their games, you naturally filter them out, either shifting them toward healthier behavior or letting them move on, while remaining available for the kind of secure, honest connection that does not rely on games at all. In this sense, refusing to chase distance games is not just self-protective. It is also a way of orienting yourself toward healthier connections and away from the anxious, manipulative dynamics that never lead anywhere good. You are choosing, through your refusal, the kind of relationships you want. So learn to recognize distance games and refuse to chase them. When someone withdraws manipulatively, goes cold to provoke your pursuit, creates distance to test their power over you, do not reward it with anxious chasing. Protect your dignity, refuse to feed the game, and trust that not chasing is both healthier and more attractive than pursuit. At the same time, learn to distinguish these games from genuine needs for space, which deserve respect and patience rather than a refusal to engage. And do the deeper work of self-worth that makes refusing to chase natural rather than forced. In doing so, you free yourself from a painful and diminishing dynamic, you orient yourself toward healthier connections, and you carry the quiet strength of a person who values themselves too much to chase those who play games with their heart. Trick 27. Become an excellent listener. Among all the skills that draw people close and create deep connection, few are as powerful, as rare, or as underrated as the skill of truly excellent listening. Most people are, at best, mediocre listeners, waiting for their turn to speak, half attending while planning their response, hearing words without truly receiving them. Genuine, deep, excellent listening, the kind that makes another person feel truly heard and understood, is extraordinarily rare, and precisely because it is rare, it is extraordinarily powerful. The person who becomes an excellent listener possesses one of the surest and deepest ways of connecting with others, of making them feel valued, and of becoming, to them, unforgettable. Consider first what most listening actually is, so the contrast is clear. Most people, while another is talking, are not truly listening. They are waiting to speak, planning what they will say next, half attending while their minds are partly elsewhere, hearing the words but not truly receiving the meaning and feeling beneath them. This is listening in form but not in substance, the appearance of listening without its reality. And people feel the difference, even if they cannot name it. Being on the receiving end of this half-listening leaves a subtle sense of not being truly heard, of one's words landing on someone who is not fully receiving them. This is the ordinary texture of most conversation, and it is exactly why genuine listening stands out so sharply. Now consider what excellent listening actually is. It is listening with full presence and genuine interest, truly receiving not just the words but the meaning and feeling beneath them. It is listening to understand rather than to respond, giving the speaker your complete attention, following not only what they say but what they mean and feel. It involves the whole self, attentive eyes, an engaged presence, responses that show you have truly understood, questions that follow genuinely from interest rather than steering toward your own agenda. Excellent listening makes the speaker feel truly heard, deeply understood, genuinely received. And this feeling of being truly heard is one of the most satisfying and bonding experiences in all of human connection, because it is so rare and answers so deep a longing. The psychology of why deep listening is so powerful connects to the fundamental human longing to be understood, discussed at the very beginning of this collection. Being truly listened to is one of the primary ways this longing is met. When someone truly listens to us, deeply and fully, we feel understood, valued, and cared for. We feel that our inner world matters, that our words are worth receiving, that we are worth the effort of genuine attention. This is deeply satisfying and deeply bonding. We become attached to those who truly listen to us, because they give us the rare and precious experience of being genuinely heard, of mattering enough to command real attention. In a world of half-listeners, the true listener becomes irreplaceable. Consider a specific illustration. You share something that matters to you with two different people. The first half listens, waiting to speak, offering a quick response that shows they were more focused on their own reply than on truly understanding you, perhaps redirecting quickly to their own experience. You walk away feeling vaguely unheard. The second truly listens, fully present, genuinely interested, following your meaning and feeling, responding in a way that shows they deeply understood, drawing you out with genuine questions. You walk away feeling truly heard, understood, valued. The difference in how you feel is enormous, and it shapes how you feel about each person. You are drawn to the second, the one who truly listened, because they gave you the rare gift of genuine attention. Excellent listening involves several elements worth naming. It requires full presence, the undivided attention discussed earlier, without which true listening is impossible. It requires genuine interest, an actual curiosity about the other person and their inner world, rather than a performed attention. It requires listening to understand rather than to respond, setting aside the impulse to plan your reply and instead truly receiving what the person is saying. It requires attending to the meaning and feeling beneath the words, not just the surface content. And it often involves drawing the person out with genuine questions, reflecting back what you have understood, showing through your responses that you have truly received them. Together these elements create the experience of being deeply heard. It is worth noting that excellent listening cannot be faked into something merely technical. Listening deployed as a technique, performed without genuine interest, tends to feel hollow, and people sense the difference between being truly listened to and being subjected to listening behaviors. The genuine article requires actual presence and actual interest, an authentic curiosity about the other person. This is why becoming an excellent listener is not primarily about learning techniques, but about cultivating genuine interest in others, genuine presence, and a genuine desire to understand. When these are real, excellent listening flows naturally. When they are absent, no technique can fully substitute for them. The deepest work of becoming a great listener is becoming genuinely interested in and present to other people. Consider also what excellent listening gives you, beyond its power to connect. When you truly listen, you actually come to understand people deeply, to know them, to grasp their inner worlds. This understanding is itself valuable, allowing you to connect more genuinely, to respond more wisely, to care more truly. The half-listener never really knows the people around them, because they never truly receive them. The excellent listener comes to know people deeply, and this deep knowing enriches every connection. So excellent listening is not only a gift you give to others, it is also a way of genuinely knowing the people in your life, which is one of the great enrichments of human existence. To truly listen is to truly know, and to truly know another person is one of the deepest forms of intimacy. There is a beautiful humility and generosity in excellent listening as well. To truly listen is to set aside your own ego, your own agenda, your own eagerness to speak, and to give yourself fully to receiving another person. It is an act of genuine generosity, of putting the other person's expression above your own, of valuing their inner world enough to truly attend to it. This generosity is felt, and it is deeply attractive, because it is so rare in a world where most people are primarily interested in being heard themselves. The person who truly listens offers a rare gift of selfless attention, and people are drawn to those who offer it, because it is so uncommon and so nourishing to receive. So become an excellent listener. Cultivate genuine presence and genuine interest in others. Listen to understand rather than to respond, setting aside the impulse to plan your reply and instead truly receiving what people say and mean and feel. Attend to the meaning and feeling beneath the words. Draw people out, reflect back your understanding, show through your engagement that you have truly received them, and ground all of this in genuine curiosity about others rather than technique. In doing so, you offer people the rare and precious experience of being truly heard. You come to genuinely know the people in your life, and you become, to those you listen to, someone valued and unforgettable. Because in a world of half listeners, the one who truly listens gives a gift almost no one else gives. Trick 28. Use emotional contrast to increase attraction. There is a principle in the psychology of emotion and attraction that is subtle, powerful, and often misunderstood: the principle of emotional contrast. Emotions are felt not in absolute terms but relative to what came before, and this means that the impact of any emotional experience is heightened by contrast with a different preceding state. Warmth feels warmer after some distance, calm feels more precious after intensity, presence feels more valued after absence. Understanding and gently using emotional contrast can significantly heighten the impact of the positive emotions you create in others, making your warmth land harder and your presence feel more valuable. But like all these principles, it must be understood rightly and used with care and genuineness. Consider first the basic psychology of contrast. Our experience of anything is shaped by what we compare it to, by what came before. A moderate warmth feels wonderfully warm after coldness, but ordinary after constant warmth. A moment of calm feels deeply peaceful after intensity, but unremarkable after constant calm. Presence feels precious after absence, but taken for granted after constant presence. This is simply how emotional perception works. We feel things relative to their contrast with other states, not in absolute terms. And this means that the same positive experience, the same warmth, the same attention, the same presence, can land with very different force depending on what precedes it. Contrast heightens impact, sameness dulls it. Now consider how this applies to attraction. The warmth, attention, and presence you offer someone will land far harder when there is some contrast, some variation, than when they are delivered in an unvarying constant stream. This connects to several principles already discussed. It is part of why absence makes presence more valued, why selective attention feels more precious than constant attention, why a little unpredictability keeps things alive. In each case, the underlying mechanism is contrast. The positive experience lands harder because it stands out against a different background, rather than blending into an unvarying sameness. Emotional contrast is, in a sense, the deeper principle beneath several of the others, the reason variation heightens impact while constancy dulls it. Consider a specific example. Imagine someone who is warm and attentive in an absolutely constant, unvarying way. The same warmth, the same attention, delivered identically all the time, without any variation. Over time, this constant warmth, however genuine, tends to fade into the background, taken for granted, no longer especially felt, because there is no contrast to make it stand out. Now imagine someone whose warmth, while genuine, exists alongside the natural variations of a full and real life. Moments of absorption in their own pursuits, natural rhythms of closeness and space, the ordinary contrasts of a genuine person living a genuine life. Against these natural contrasts, their warmth lands far harder when it comes, felt freshly rather than taken for granted, because it stands out against a varied background rather than blending into an unvarying constant. It is essential, though, to understand emotional contrast rightly and to firmly reject its manipulative distortions, because this is a principle easily and harmfully misused. The manipulative distortion of emotional contrast is the deliberate creation of negative emotions, coldness, distance, cruelty, artificial conflict, in order to make subsequent warmth land harder. This is the logic behind toxic patterns of deliberately hurting someone and then being kind, of manufactured hot and cold cycles, of creating pain to heighten the impact of relief. This manipulation is genuinely harmful. It creates anxiety, erodes trust, and builds unhealthy, even abusive dynamics. It is emphatically not what is meant here, and it should be firmly rejected. Deliberately manufacturing negative emotions to heighten positive ones is manipulation, and it damages people. The healthy version of emotional contrast is entirely different. It is not about manufacturing negative states, but about allowing the natural contrasts that come from being a full, real, genuine person with your own life. The natural rhythms of closeness and space, of presence and absence, of shared intensity and quiet calm, that come from living a genuine life, create healthy contrast without any manipulation. You do not need to manufacture coldness to create contrast. The natural variations of a real life provide it. This healthy contrast comes not from engineering negative emotions, but from simply being a whole person with a full life, whose warmth exists alongside the natural rhythms and variations of genuine living. This is the version to embrace. The manufactured version is the version to reject entirely. Consider also the contrast between different genuine emotional registers, which can heighten connection without any manipulation. A person who has a range, who can be playful and also deep, calm and also passionate, light and also serious, creates natural emotional contrast simply through the genuine range of their being. The shift from playfulness to sudden depth, from calm to genuine passion, from lightness to real seriousness, creates contrasts that heighten the impact of each register. This is not manipulation. It is simply the richness of a person with genuine emotional range. The person with such range is more compelling than the person stuck in a single emotional register, partly because of the contrast their range creates, the way each register lands harder against the others. There is a deeper wisdom in understanding emotional contrast, which is really about appreciating the role of variation and range in a rich emotional life and a rich connection. Constancy in all things, even good things, tends toward dullness, because without contrast, perception fades. Variation, range, natural rhythm, these keep emotional experience alive and vivid. A connection with natural emotional range and rhythm, with genuine variation, stays more alive than one locked into an unvarying sameness, even a pleasant one. So understanding emotional contrast is, at its best, understanding the value of range and variation and natural rhythm in keeping a connection vivid and alive, not through manipulation, but through the genuine richness of full, varied, real emotional life. Consider how this fits with the overall spirit of these principles. Emotional contrast, understood rightly, is not a manipulation to be performed but a natural feature of genuine, full, varied living. When you are a whole person with a real life, genuine emotional range, and natural rhythms of closeness and space, you create healthy emotional contrast simply by being yourself. Your warmth lands harder because it exists alongside the natural variations of your life. Your presence is more valued because of its natural rhythms. Your different emotional registers heighten each other through their genuine range. All of this comes not from engineering emotions in others, but from being a genuinely full and varied person, which is, in the end, what all these principles point toward. So understand emotional contrast, and use it only in its healthy form. Reject firmly the manipulative distortion of manufacturing negative emotions to heighten positive ones, which is harmful and builds unhealthy dynamics. Instead, allow the natural contrasts that come from being a full, real person with your own life, the natural rhythms of presence and space, the genuine range of your emotional registers, the variations that come from living a genuine life. Let your warmth land harder because it exists against the natural variations of a real existence, not because you engineered coldness to precede it. In doing so, you keep your connections vivid and alive through genuine range and rhythm, heightening the impact of the positive emotions you create, not through manipulation, but through the authentic richness of a full and varied life. Trick 29. Make your words precise and memorable. In a world drowning in words, endless talk, constant chatter, a ceaseless flood of communication, there is a quiet power in precision. The person who says less but makes each word count, who speaks with precision and impact rather than in a rambling flood, whose words are chosen and memorable rather than excessive and forgettable, wields a kind of influence that the endless talkers never achieve. Precise, memorable words carry weight, land with impact, and stay with people long after rambling has been forgotten. Learning to make your words precise and memorable is learning to make your communication actually matter. Consider first the problem with excessive words. When people talk too much, ramble, over-explain, flood their communication with unnecessary words, several things happen. The important points get buried in the excess, losing their impact. The listener's attention fades under the weight of too many words. Nothing stands out, because everything blurs together into an undifferentiated stream. And the speaker, paradoxically, seems less impactful and often less confident, because the excess suggests a lack of clarity or a nervous need to keep talking. Excessive words dilute meaning and diminish impact. The flood of words, far from communicating more, often communicates less, because its very excess prevents anything from landing clearly. Now consider the power of precise, economical words. When you say less but choose your words well, each word carries more weight. The important points stand out clearly rather than being buried. The listener's attention is held rather than exhausted. Your communication lands with impact and stays memorable. And you seem more confident and impactful, because precision suggests clarity of thought and a lack of nervous over-talking. Precise words concentrate meaning rather than diluting it, and concentrated meaning lands harder and lasts longer. The person who speaks with economy and precision makes each word count, and their communication, though it uses fewer words, actually communicates more and stays with people longer. The psychology here connects to attention and memory. Attention is limited, and it fades under the weight of excess. Concise, precise communication respects the listener's attention and holds it, while rambling exhausts it. Memory, too, favors the concise and striking. A precise, well-chosen phrase is remembered, while a rambling flood is forgotten. The well-chosen word, the precise phrase, the economical expression, lands more clearly and lodges in memory more firmly than the excess that surrounds most communication. So precision is not just about elegance. It is about actually being heard and actually being remembered, about making your communication land and last rather than fading into the forgettable flood. Consider a specific contrast. Someone wants to express something meaningful. In one version, they ramble toward it, surrounding the point with excessive words, over-explaining, burying the meaning in a flood of talk. The point, if it lands at all, lands weakly, diluted by the excess. In the other version, they express the same thing precisely, in well-chosen words, letting the meaning land clearly and cleanly without excess. This version lands with far more impact and is far more likely to be remembered. The precision concentrates the meaning and gives it force. The same thought, expressed precisely rather than in a ramble, becomes memorable rather than forgettable, impactful rather than diluted. There is a particular power in precise, memorable words in moments that matter. When you want to express something meaningful, appreciation, a feeling, an important truth, expressing it precisely and memorably gives it far more impact than rambling toward it. A single, well-chosen, heartfelt sentence can land with enormous force and stay with someone for years. The same sentiment, rambled toward in a flood of words, dissipates. So in the moments that matter most, precision matters most. The ability to say the meaningful thing precisely, in words chosen to land and to last, is the ability to make your most important communications actually reach and stay with people, rather than dissolving into forgettable excess. Developing precision requires several things. It requires clarity of thought, because you cannot express precisely what you have not thought clearly. Precise words come from precise thinking. It requires the discipline to resist the flood, to not fill every space with words, to trust that less can be more. It requires an ear for language, a sense of which words land and which dilute, which phrasings are memorable and which forgettable. And it often requires the confidence to be economical, to trust that your few well-chosen words will land, rather than nervously piling on more words out of insecurity. These qualities can be developed through attention and practice, through learning to think clearly, to resist over-talking, and to choose words with care. It is worth distinguishing precise economy from cold terseness. Making your words precise and memorable does not mean being terse, cold, or withholding, speaking so little that you seem distant or unengaged. It means making the words you do speak count, choosing them well, letting meaning land clearly. You can be warm, engaged, and expressive while still being precise. Precision is about quality and impact rather than mere brevity. In fact, warmth expressed precisely lands harder than warmth drowned in excess. So this is not about speaking as little as possible, but about making your communication, however much or little, precise and impactful rather than excessive and diluting. The goal is words that count, not merely words that are few. Consider also how precision connects to the broader qualities discussed throughout. Precision reflects the clarity and groundedness of a settled mind. It connects to speaking with quiet certainty rather than anxious over-explanation, to the thoughtful response rather than the reflexive flood, to the confidence that does not need to fill every silence. The person who speaks precisely tends to be a person who thinks clearly, who is secure enough not to overtalk, who has the groundedness to let their few well-chosen words land. So developing precision is partly developing these deeper qualities of clear thinking and inner security, from which precise, impactful communication naturally flows. Precision, in this sense, is the outward expression of an inner clarity and steadiness. So learn to make your words precise and memorable. Resist the flood of excess. Say less but make each word count. Cultivate the clarity of thought from which precise expression flows, and the discipline and confidence to be economical rather than over-talking. Choose your words with care, especially in the moments that matter, letting meaning land clearly and memorably rather than dissolving into ramble. Stay warm and engaged while being precise, making the words you speak count rather than merely speaking few. In doing so, you make your communication actually land and actually last, standing out sharply in a world drowning in forgettable excess, and you become the rare person whose few well-chosen words carry more weight and stay longer in memory than everyone else's endless talk. Trick 30. Be genuinely passionate about your own life. We arrive, at the end of this long exploration, at what may be the deepest and most important principle of all, the quality that underlies and gives life to every other principle we have discussed. It is this: be genuinely passionate about your own life. Have your own purpose, your own interests, your own pursuits, your own aliveness, independent of any relationship. Live a life that genuinely excites and fulfills you. Because a person who is genuinely passionate about their own life, fully alive in their own existence, is naturally and profoundly attractive. And because this genuine aliveness is the foundation from which nearly everything else that draws people flows. Consider first why passion for your own life is so attractive. There is an energy, a vitality, a magnetism to a person who is genuinely alive in their own existence, pursuing things that excite them, engaged in a life that fulfills them, animated by their own purpose and interests. This aliveness is compelling. We are drawn to people who are fully alive, who have their own fire, their own direction, their own genuine engagement with existence. Their passion is magnetic. Their aliveness draws others toward them, wanting to be near that energy, wanting to share in that vitality. The person fully alive in their own life radiates something that people are naturally drawn to, a warmth and vitality that a life without passion simply cannot produce. Consider, by contrast, the person without their own passion, purpose, or aliveness, whose life lacks genuine engagement, who has no fire of their own, who looks to relationships to provide the meaning and excitement their own life lacks. Such a person, however nice, tends to lack the magnetism of the genuinely alive, and often brings a subtle neediness to relationships, looking to another person to supply the vitality and purpose they have not found in their own life. This places a burden on the relationship and lacks the attractive energy of genuine aliveness. The absence of one's own passion creates both a lack of magnetism and a tendency toward the neediness that comes from looking to others to fill an inner emptiness. Passion for your own life prevents both, providing magnetism and preventing neediness at once. The psychology of why aliveness attracts connects to energy and abundance. A person genuinely passionate about their life operates from a kind of abundance and vitality, an inner fullness that overflows and draws others in. They are not looking to others to fill an emptiness, because their own life is full. They come to relationships from fullness rather than need, offering their vitality rather than seeking to extract it. This abundance is attractive, both because the energy itself is magnetic and because the lack of neediness it produces is appealing. We are drawn to those who are full rather than empty, alive rather than seeking aliveness, overflowing rather than grasping. Passion for your own life creates exactly this attractive abundance and vitality. Consider how this principle underlies so many of the others we have discussed. Emotional self-sufficiency flows from having a full life of your own. The ability to create healthy absence and contrast comes from having your own pursuits to be absorbed in. The security that prevents neediness and reassurance seeking comes partly from the fullness of a life that does not depend on any relationship. The interesting depth that creates ongoing fascination comes from being a person genuinely engaged with existence, always growing and pursuing and discovering. Even the confidence and groundedness that run through so many principles flow partly from the sense of purpose and aliveness that passion for your own life provides. In this sense, passion for your own life is the root from which many of the other attractive qualities naturally grow. Consider a specific picture of this. Imagine someone genuinely passionate about their life, deeply engaged in work or pursuits that excite them, animated by real interests, alive with their own purpose and direction. When they enter a relationship, they bring this fullness and vitality. They do not need the relationship to give them a reason to live, because they already have one. They share their aliveness rather than seeking it, offer their vitality rather than extracting it, and remain interesting because they are genuinely engaged with existence. Contrast this with someone whose life lacks its own passion, who looks to the relationship to provide the meaning and excitement they have not found elsewhere. The first brings magnetism and fullness. The second brings neediness and a subtle emptiness. The difference in attractiveness is profound, and it flows directly from the presence or absence of passion for one's own life. It is worth emphasizing that this passion must be genuine, not performed. You cannot fake a genuine passion for your life. Performed enthusiasm rings hollow, and the emptiness beneath it shows. This means that the work here is not to appear passionate, but to actually build a life you are genuinely passionate about, to find and pursue what genuinely excites and fulfills you, to develop real interests and real purpose, to actually become alive in your own existence. This is deep and lifelong work, the work of building a genuinely fulfilling life, but it is among the most valuable work a person can do, both for its own sake and because of the genuine aliveness and attractiveness it produces. A life you genuinely love is attractive precisely because it is genuine. There is a beautiful and freeing truth in this principle, which brings the whole collection to its proper conclusion. The deepest secret of attraction is not a set of techniques to perform on others, but the cultivation of a genuinely full, alive, and fulfilling life of your own. When you are genuinely passionate about your life, genuinely alive, genuinely fulfilled, the attractiveness follows naturally, flowing from your real aliveness rather than from any performance. You become magnetic not because you are trying to be, but because you are genuinely full of life, and genuine life is magnetic. This means the path to becoming more attractive is, at its deepest, the path to building a life you genuinely love, which is a beautiful convergence, because it means the work of attraction and the work of a good life are, in the end, the same work. This also means that the healthiest orientation is not to focus primarily on attracting others, but to focus on living genuinely, on building a full, passionate, fulfilling life of your own, from which genuine connection naturally flows. When you live this way, you become attractive as a byproduct of genuine aliveness rather than as the product of technique, and you attract others from a place of fullness rather than need, offering your vitality rather than seeking it. And the connections you form on this foundation are healthier and deeper, built between two people who each bring their own fullness rather than seeking to fill their emptiness through each other. Passion for your own life is thus not only the most attractive quality, but also the foundation of the healthiest connections. So, above all, be genuinely passionate about your own life. Find and pursue what genuinely excites and fulfills you. Build a life animated by your own purpose, interests, and aliveness, independent of any relationship. Become genuinely, fully alive in your own existence. Do this not primarily as a technique to attract others, but as the deepest foundation of a good life, from which genuine attractiveness and genuine connection naturally flow. In doing so, you become magnetic through real aliveness rather than performance, you attract from fullness rather than need, and you discover the beautiful truth at the heart of it all, that the surest way to draw others to you is to build a life so genuinely full and alive that you are no longer trying to draw anyone at all, but simply living fully, radiating the vitality that genuine aliveness produces, and letting others be drawn, naturally, to the light of a life truly lived.